welcome to the PopCult Podcast with your hosts Tyler and Tommy. How's it going,
Hello,
Tommy?
hello. I'm good, man. How are you?
Just finished watching the new Mission Impossible film, Final Reckoning. Is it just called Final Reckoning or Final Reckoning Part 2?
It was an interesting, we can get into it later, but yeah, it's the final reckoning.
And that will be our main topic today, and then we'll also be piggybacking off that, and we'll do our top 3 action films and also what defines an action film, and we'll also do our list of usual sort of honourable mentions as well. We'll get straight into it. A review of Mission Impossible Final Reckoning.
Let's do it!
Tommy, you're a massive fan of the franchise. Myself, not as much. I'm pretty sure I've seen the first 3 a very, very long time ago. Don't remember a single bit about them other than like the key little moments. So it's quite funny to see them all referenced in like little flashbacks in this film.
There's so many flashbacks in this one.
It's actually ridiculous. But what is it? Ghost Protocol. I really like that one. And in preparation for this, I watched Fallout, Dead Reckoning, and Final Reckoning, and Fallout is probably my favourite, and was a really, really good film. Enjoyed that one a lot.
What about Rogue Nation?
I haven't seen it.
Oh man, but Fallout is basically kind of like a sequel to Rogue Nation.
I know. As soon as I put it on, I was like, oh fucking hell, I probably have to go back and watch Rogue Nation as well. And then I was thinking, am I just gonna have to go back and watch all of these movies to be caught up on Final Reckoning, which I didn't really want to do. So I went as far back as Fallout and caught up from there, and I kind of got the gist.
I mean, they're not complex movies, so you can pick up whenever you want.
Yeah, they always give you a nice little, oh, isn't that this thing, Ethan, from this place? And when you had this problem with that guy? So it kind of gives you a little bit of a catch-up at the beginning.
Actually, they did it a little bit too much in this one, I believe. But they were so scared because the previous movie underperformed. So they were not sure that a lot of people really remembered or cared for Dead Reckoning. So basically they do a huge recap, like the first hour of this movie is just prep work. But yeah, this is getting ahead of myself. Going back to your first question about Mission Impossible as a franchise, I love Mission Impossible. They are silly movies, yes, but they are my silly movies. And I wouldn't even call them guilty pleasures, really, because outside of the ridiculous plot of some of these, the filmmaking on display is just chef's kiss. If you accept that this is a campy spy movie universe and the laws of reality are as flexible as the director or Tom need them to be in any given scene, you're gonna have a good time. So yeah,
absolutely. I think for me, it's when that plot gets too convoluted and a bit messy. It kind of loses touch with what it is. But for the most part, I think these are definitely really well made movies, and I think, there is a grounded element to them, and obviously the star of the show is the big stunt action sequences, which really deliver pretty much in all the films, even the ones which I didn't necessarily love. So.
Exactly. And also, we were discussing Thunderbolts recently, right? And you were kind of lamenting the fact that recent media is very rarely genuine and earnest, like older movies used to be, right?
I literally noted that down. This shows real reverence, and it actually is genuine.
Everything needs to be a subversion now, a deconstruction of something. Mission Impossible is probably the most genuine franchise out there. Ethan Hunt is just a good spy who wants to do good things. That's his character, literally. They had 8 movies to develop him and they never did. It's just a good guy. And he's never morally compromised. And even when he kinda is, it's someone else's fault. He'll do anything to accomplish the mission except putting other people in danger. He always goes rogue. He's always working towards a greater good. He loves humanity, Tyler. He loves and cares about humanity so deeply.
Not as much as he loves his team.
It's like an
You won't
aliens version of.
sacrifice. You won't sacrifice a member of that team for no one, I tell you.
Well, I mean, the great conflict comes from that, but like it's like an aliens version of what a good man is. It's like a Jesus guy. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
It's
There's a.
and I tell you what, they probably the allure, and I imagine Tom Cruise's heavily involvement is why they haven't gone down this route. But the allure of doing what James Bond did when they reinvented it for the modern audience, of making Ethan Hunt this down on his luck, retired old loser type who has to get himself back in the game. Do you know what I mean? That kind of trope
Yeah.
that you see in a lot of stuff. I'm sure that those ideas were bandied around, and Tom Cruise was like, no, Ethan Hunt is the all-star action man, and that is what he is in every damn movie, and that's why they are what they are.
Yeah. They carved this identity for themselves throughout the years. They started off very differently. Mission Impossible 1 is, a classic spy movie. It has this Brian De Palma touch. It's very somber in the first half. It becomes a little bit more campy and extreme with the train scene at the end and Jean Reno on his CGI helicopter chasing down a tunnel. But it's still a very grounded movie compared to what they did later. And because Tom Cruise became more and more involved with the production, and he brought in all these elements of like, okay, let's do stunts for real. I will be the one who does all these crazy things, and we love him for it. He's a crazy man, and he's a weirdo. And I saw a video of him eating popcorn, and I'm convinced he's not human anymore. But
He climbs a plane with no harness, flying through the air more humanly than a person eats popcorn. That's the most Tom Cruise thing you'll ever hear.
and like going back to the earnestness and like of these movies, there's a line in this towards the end where this general is like reacting to something that Ethan is doing, and he says something along the lines of, he did it, that son of a bitch really did it.
Yeah, that's literally the line.
And I mean, with a line like that in a 2025 movie, what more do you want? What more do you expect from cinema? Isn't this what Martin Scorsese was talking about, man? Like this is the best we can wish for, honestly. Like it's so straightforward and genuine. It's heartwarming, honestly, in today's climate.
I do agree. I think there's some levels here though still, and I still think all the in between stuff of the action has to still make sense to set the stakes, and you got to care about the characters, because you don't want to be one of those films where it's like, oh, you only pique your interest when Tom Cruise is going to do a big stunt. Like all the
Yeah,
in
I
between
agree.
moments have to be good too, and I do think, yeah, it definitely, say if you're comparing Fallout to this last one, Fallout does that a lot better. It's a way more cohesive storyline.
100%. Like my
Yeah.
favorite is Rogue Nation, and Fallout is
Oh,
a close
fair.
second.
Okay. Yeah.
And they both, all these movies have some sort of device or ticking bomb of some kind that adds this energy, like this level of urgency. We need to find this guy by this time, or something is gonna explode somewhere. um, every individual scene is well crafted, and yes, we could spend a lot of time here poking holes at the plots, at all the conveniences and the coincidence and the unexplained stuff. But I think with movies like these, it's, I agree with you that some of the stuff, especially in this last one, does hinder the enjoyment a bit. But when you focus on the stuff, you're kind of missing the point. Like, I never advocate for the turn your brain off mentality, the just enjoy it approach to entertainment. But in this specific case, the plot is not what you go to see these movies for. In a lot of ways, it's kind of like the Fast and Furious franchise. Only Mission Impossible, I think, is a million times better than that, for my taste, at least. So
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think it makes the action sequences better when everything else in between is working towards a cohesive story. So, and I get it. Obviously, we're not going to watch an incredible character arc or a great in-depth like story with a Mission Impossible film. But the times when they do achieve that, they are way better.
Yeah. And but can I just say one thing before we go into the nitty-gritty of the movie itself? The film, for my screening at least, I don't know if this happened for every screening of the movie, but like in my cinema they played a little video message at the beginning before the movie started from
Oh
Tom
yeah.
himself. And Tom was thanking me for being there in the theater, supporting cinema. So you know what? You are welcome, Tom. You are so very welcome, and thank you.
Yeah,
uh,
I think that goodwill goes a long way. It's rare. Somehow it's rare today in films where the people involved in the movie are actually, are thankful and grateful to the fan base rather than just shitting all over them. So I think it's weird because I was chatting to my mate about this the other day, how much of a hard turn I feel like in public perception there's been on Tom Cruise. And
yeah,
I feel like people really genuinely like him and think he's one of the best, like most genuine guys left in Hollywood.
the PR team has done the Lord's work with this because
True, and also he doesn't necessarily even have to thank his PR team. He just has to thank this new wave of this generation of actors who seem to complain about everything and want to shit all over the fan base or shit all over a source material of something. And constantly on social media, and they're constantly in the faces of the audience. Whereas Tom Cruise is an old school actor in the sense that you only see him when he's promoting a big movie and when he's in that film. And I think I can't remember. I saw a quote from Denzel Washington saying it to Michael B. Jordan.
yeah,
He was saying, you can't give the people too much of you because then they won't pay to go see you on the weekend. They can't be in their face all the time. And I think a lot of modern actors are all over social media and they're all part-time influencers and doing all this stuff. And I think that allure,
and
Tom Cruise
expressing their opinion on stuff.
yeah, or Joaquin Phoenix getting up on stage and telling you to not drink goat's milk or something weird.
Yeah.
He's managed to avoid all that, and I think over the years that has brought back a lot of goodwill on him.
He just loves movies, and that's what
does.
he's here to do, and that's why we like him and like his movies, because he's gonna put 100% of himself and his production on a project to deliver the best quality he thinks he can do. And like he got a lot of shit for a bunch of stuff, deservedly so. As a Scientologist, maybe he's not anymore, I don't know, I'm not sure. But when it came to these movies, specifically the first one that was made during COVID, like the whole production halted and he kept everything on a payroll because they needed to resume production as soon as the COVID restriction lifted. So like he kept paying people throughout the pandemic, and I think that's commendable. Like he has an interest in making movies good, and he's trying also to, I don't know, like have a positive impact on the industry by doing so. So
Oh, definitely, and he's a damn good actor as well. I,
yeah,
had never watched it before, and it was probably a couple months ago. I saw The Last Samurai,
yeah. Oh my
and
god.
it's such a good film.
It is an amazing movie.
Such a good movie.
I caught it on TV recently for like I haven't seen it in such a long time. It was like halfway done, and I didn't care. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna watch the last act of The Last Samurai because it's so hype. Yes, it's really
God
good.
damn, it's so good, and he's brilliant in it. It's probably one of my favorite performances of his. But I think he probably doesn't get the credit he deserves as an actor sometimes for the range he has.
Well, he
And
hasn't allowed himself to be in a lot of stuff that asks for range recently. He's
no,
done
no,
the
not
Jack
within the
Reacher
last.
movies, the Top
Yeah,
Gun
yeah.
reboot slash sequel, these Mission Impossible movies, but he hasn't done enough auteur stuff.
No.
I need another Tropic Thunder to really
Exactly.
see him.
Look at range. You put his character from Tropic Thunder against his character from Magnolia. It's like this is range right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
And
good,
incredible
man.
makeup too.
Yeah, he's
Um,
very good.
So yeah, great. Tom Cruise is great and is good in this too. Even though I do not like his haircut in this one.
Yeah,
Uh,
I thought it was a bit silly, especially like when he's hanging onto the plane and it turns his hat into like a medieval friar monk. Like it
he
looked
looked like
ridiculous.
yeah. What are the Three Stooges? One of them
Yeah,
has that
yeah.
hair.
Do you remember Dumb and
Um,
Dumber? Like Lloyd Christmas, his fucking
yeah,
haircut, Jim
yeah.
Carrey's character.
That was him. That's exactly him. And with those big teeth of his, it just looks like him.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie, okay, Final Reckoning. You asked about the title. This is another thing. They changed the title because it was supposed to be the Dead Reckoning Part Two, right? Because it was to be a direct sequel of the
Yeah, yeah.
first Dead Reckoning. But then Dead Reckoning surprisingly underperformed after the previous Mission Impossible movies. They all did really well, and Top Gun Maverick was a great success. They were expecting the movie to do a lot better than it did, but people did not show up for Dead Reckoning. So they retooled it a bit, and I think a lot of the stuff that holds this movie back is due to like when you do those screenings, like early screenings for
Yeah.
people, and people were just confused about the plot and about the characters, so they had to add all this extra explanation, and they changed the title so that people would not think, oh, I need to watch part one to watch
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
because they were scared that the movie would not make back its budget. So
Did it do
um
well at the box office, the final one?
I think it's doing decently. Yeah, yeah. I haven't looked at the numbers. We can do it right now, but yeah. My theater was full when I watched it. So yeah, it felt like people were showing up for this, and it felt like it was like this farewell. Even though we'll get into, probably it's not really a farewell, but um, yeah, it's it's the eighth movie in a franchise that is 30 years old. It's as old as me, basically. And almost older, actually. When did the first come out? Like 94. So yeah, was really emotional to watch this. Well, not really, but like a little bit of
Yeah, there was
nostalgia.
definitely some yeah, like a lot of reverence put into this film, and it was a good farewell, I guess, to the franchise. Didn't feel like a farewell to any character in particular. Like it didn't feel like a big farewell to Tom Cruise, or it just felt like a farewell to the franchise as a whole, with all the little clips and flashbacks from all the other films that we had.
I promised myself I'd stop using very obvious adjectives to describe stuff in our reviews. So I wrote here a few good ones that describe this movie for me. It's a sumptuous movie, Tyler. It's lavish, it's absorbing, it's uproarious, it's astonishing, and it's even rambunctious in parts. And that's
Sumptuous makes me think that it tastes really good.
okay.
It's a
Then
really
I
tasty movie.
it's a tasty movie. I mean, the popcorn was good. Um, it's a movie that, as we mentioned, indulges in certain plot points that nobody really cares about for a bit too long, and it is way too long for what it is. And at the same time, you feel like they didn't really touch on some of the stuff they were teasing, like about Ethan's past and about his relationship to the villain. They don't really go into that, and I was hoping for it, because the villain
Yeah.
in this is a nothing villain. It makes like it's just it comes and goes unnoticed, basically.
Yeah, like I said, I don't have a great memory of the older films, but from the ones I do remember, Mission Impossible has always had a good charismatic villain. Like I really liked Sean Harris, who played Solomon Lane, and
Solomon Lane is amazing. We have we have a great Philip Seymour Hoffman in the third one,
yeah,
and even the campiest one, the second one, has a funny but good villain. Who's the guy? I can't remember the name of the actor. Wait, let me check. He was supposed to be Wolverine, but he didn't do X-Men to do Mission Impossible 2. Oh, Doug Ray Scott, and he said he regretted his decision.
what's his
Obviously,
name?
Doug Ray Scott
Doug
was
Ray Scott. Oh, Doug
yeah
Ray.
Yeah, it was a
Oh yeah,
funny.
that guy, classic
Yeah,
movie villain. That fella, yeah.
is a good villain in that. Is so over the top and crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So I was thinking, oh, maybe because, especially because we saw all these flashbacks, um, to previous films. I thought the main villain, this Gabriel guy, was
yeah.
from a previous movie, and I was like, mate, and this is a guy who maybe hasn't acted in anything for a long time. So dull as a character. And I think especially when your main villain is the entity, this AI, that sub villain, that secondary guy has to be really good, and he
Yeah.
pales in comparison to all the other previous villains of the Mission Impossible series.
He pales in comparison to a fucking robot because literally the AI is more interesting. And in the first one, I felt like, oh, it's supposed to be this way. He is supposed to feel like just an everyman, like a nobody, because he is, he's hiding his identity to everyone. You don't know who that is, but then in the final movie they will reveal some more stuff about him and his relationship to Ethan, because they clearly hint at them knowing each other, but they never go into it. So that was a big point of disappointment for me in watching the movie, for sure. So basically, in that reckoning, part one, uh, he's is presented to be this very mysterious character. Like Ethan Hunt meets with him for the first time when he's in the airport. He's looking for this key. He's stealing this key. This very cool sequence with the introduction of the Helly Athwell character too, and he's basically this ghost. The camera, the security doesn't really pick up on his face. He disappears from every recording because the AI is controlling, like it's making him disappear. And you're like, oh wow! But then there's this moment where Ethan looks at him and they see each other, and then he disappears, and he's like, oh, there's this moment of recognition. And then you have this flash of a young Ethan Hunt and this lady, this black-haired lady, like falling down, clearly has been shot, and we see that the person who shot her is this Gabriel character. So you're like, oh my god, there's this history between these two. Like Gabriel is like this ghost from Ethan Hunt's past that is coming back to haunt him, and he's gonna make his life difficult, and he's gonna ally with the entity, and this is gonna be like a fight for survival and a fight for this, humanity and the future of humanity because of this AI thing. But also it's going to be a personal fight for Ethan because he hates this guy who killed his old girlfriend.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
maybe and maybe he had something to do with Ethan becoming a member of the Mission Impossible task force, because all the people who become agents, they have a past. They maybe were criminals, or like they were agents, like they worked for the government but they did something wrong, and so instead of throwing them in prison, they decide to give them this opportunity to serve the country secretly. I was expecting them to explore this, and it would have been so much more interesting than an hour of, oh, do you remember this thing that happened two movies ago that no one cares about? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and I thought it was highlighted in its worst moment when we get the scene when, is it Grace? Haley Atwell's character,
Yeah, Grace.
and Ethan they're strapped up and they're about to be tortured for information by Gabriel and his crew, and Gabriel sets down and he reveals that the rabbit's foot that they stole in Mission Impossible 3, was it Mission
Yeah.
Impossible 3? There was
Yeah, it was
actually,
Mission Impossible 3.
and I thought, I don't know, maybe I don't remember that film as well, but I kind of like it when a film like can tie something in, and it's definitely a retcon. Like they never
Yeah, it's
planned this from them.
100% a retcon, yes.
Yeah, but I like, and sometimes retcons can work, and it's like, oh, actually, this thing you thought was just unrelated, and 10 years ago actually set this thing off, and I thought they weaved that
I
in quite nicely.
I liked it.
Um,
It
yeah,
felt like a nice little touch. Like it works much better here, I think, than it did when Bond did it. I think in the recent Daniel Craig Spectre movie, they have this scene where they reveal that literally everything that happened to Bond in previous movies was orchestrated in some way by Spectre, and it
right,
felt
right,
it felt so dumb there. It feels so
yeah.
dumb here too. But if I feel like Mission Impossible can have these sort of classic reveals and make them work, it's not as self serious as Bond.
Yeah, it doesn't break the story or anything at all. It's
Yeah,
just like, oh, hey, this is how this AI tech formed, and that's absolutely fine. I like that. But
you were saying, yeah,
Gabriel's referencing Philip Seymour Hoffman. We get the scenes of Philip Seymour Hoffman. We get him doing the exact same thing. You know,
the
oh,
line, yeah,
I'm gonna hurt someone you love to get you to do this thing for me. And it's like,
yeah.
well, now you're referencing a better villain and you're copying his same plan. And it's just like, well, you're a cheap pretender of what Philip Seymour Hoffman was.
They wanted to kind of like homage this character, clearly the best part of Mission Impossible 3, and clearly a great actor that is sorely missed. But yeah, it was a bit clunky, and it didn't hold a candle to the original for sure. You know, uh, it's just a little reference, but I understand your point.
Yeah,
Uh,
just having him and having the current villain, doing the exact same thing as the older villain, and it not working as well. It just wasn't a good look because then you're comparing the two like directly. So yeah, poor villain. Um, which is kind of crazy to think if you know this is going to be a last big two-parter of a franchise that's gone on for so long.
you should
I
have a good villain.
Yeah, a well-known actor, somebody with some
Well,
charisma, or like,
you can't upstage Tom, like you can't risk upstaging the good
but
Mr. Cruz.
I bet Philip Seymour Hoffman did in Mission Impossible 3.
But at the time, you know, they were allowed to because he was still, you know, the
Oh,
younger,
he
scrappier
wasn't
version.
super powered
Yeah.
Tom Cruise like he is now.
It's from 4 onwards that Tom really became the like kind of like the head of the franchise and like the decision maker. Because if you
Okay,
notice, like, you know, like, yes, they have Brad Bird in the 4th one, but from the 5th onward, it's the same director. It's Christopher McQuarrie.
yeah.
So, you know, they made this creative team that remained untouched, mostly untouched for these later movies. So
Or maybe like you said, where you thought they were going with it, or have a villain that's somehow incorporated throughout Ethan Hunt's story throughout the films, and you have
yeah,
him be more of a personal villain. Yeah, just that. I thought that was a very disappointing aspect.
there were people who were kind of like theorizing that we would see someone come back from earlier movies, and we did. You know, we have the diarrhea guy from Mission Impossible 1. But there's another character that people were theorizing would come back, and he's literally one of the first. He's the first character to die in Mission Impossible 1. Is a member of Ethan Hunt's first team, and they were like, "Oh, but because he was a hacker, he's actually the one behind the entity. Is is gonna be like his consciousness, like fucking Captain America too." People were like, "Oh, it must be someone that we know because it's like the last movie." Anyway,
I kind of get that because, whilst we're on the topic of villains, like the AI villain just seems like an incorrect choice for Mission Impossible as well. It doesn't seem like the
yeah,
right fit. And I suppose, yeah, you maybe assume, oh, actually, that's all just a ruse, and it's somebody orchestrating this whole thing from behind the scenes.
even Bourne did it. Like the 4th Bourne movie was like evil Facebook. Like it's annoying when these spy movies decide to go into the digital space. It's more fun when it's just, you know, gadgets and international espionage and hot ladies and galas and
Yeah, it's better to have a face of that villain, a face of the antagonist that you're actually going up against, rather than this autonomous AI. I just felt like they kept every time they kept being like the entity. I was like, this seems silly.
but I did appreciate the tone. Like it felt different from the previous one. It was less jokey, it was more serious. It really sold the gravity of the situation. I mean, almost every Mission Impossible deals with some world-ending crisis, but this one needed to feel more world-ending, if you know what I mean, and it
Yeah,
did.
rather than one nuke on one major city, we're nuking every major city now.
Yeah, it's not my favorite, but it's a solid entry. The plot, as we said, is not the best, but this movie has 2 sequences that are the 2 main selling points for the movie. And I don't know if they're going to continue. As they said, they leave it a bit open ended guess they're waiting on the box office results, like when the cinema run ends. But if they do continue, and I think, in some form, they'll obviously pick this franchise back up in a few years, maybe with uh, Tom Cruise in a mentor role or something. But if they do continue, I do not know how they're gonna top what they've done here in terms of action sequences, because this is not the best Mission Impossible movie. It's not the most entertaining. It's definitely not the most well plotted. But these two sequences, where else can they go? I mean literally in terms of depth and or height, because we have and I don't know if we still want to say something more about the first half of the movie, or if we can dive in the submarine sequence, pun
Yeah, we can
intended.
go into it. I suppose the only other thing, but this also comes as a point for the end of the film. It's way overstuffed with too many characters that we're
Oh my
focusing
god,
on.
we've
And
got Mr. Milchick here.
Mr. Milkshake, who comes into it really late in, and then the focusing on him in the final montage of like flashbacks and flash forwards, like he was a prominent character throughout the series. It's like, what's
They
going
added
on
that
here?
in because he's such a popular actor.
And like the massive focus on Angela Bassett's president, I thought that was a bit of a waste. Like, I don't really see why she was become such a major character in it. I think some scenes with them discussing the issue, discussing the decisions they might have to make would have been fine, but like there was way too much of that in this film, cutting away to all those guys.
I mean, we wouldn't have had the Nick Offerman switcheroo red herring moment, which I thought was a really nice touch to that whole sequence. I was like, oh, Nick Offerman is gonna be the hard ass fucking general who wants to bomb everyone, and he's gonna take the gun from this guy and he's gonna use it to threaten the president and activate the bombs. And then, no, actually, he defends the president with the gun that he stole.
It was probably the one bit in the film where I was actually surprised about the events that were taking place.
I
Like,
was like, oh
because
my
yeah, like you
god.
said, I was like, oh, here we go. He's gonna try and kill the president. But yeah, I actually I quite like that, and that's sort of my issue with these kind of films. They are just a bit too formulaic sometimes, and a bit too like paint by numbers in terms of, well, what's going to happen. So it is nice when they can shock you a bit, and Fallout had a couple moments like that where you're like, oh, we're
Fallout
going to do
is
this. Oh, and then they do like the face reveal, and you're like, oh, actually, I didn't see that coming. That's quite a nice little
Rogue
twist.
Nation and Fallout, I think, are the highest point of the franchise, because they have a lot of fun in they keep it Mission Impossible. It's clearly Mission Impossible. It's still that. It's not like a subversion, but they do take some of the elements that became a little bit stagnant throughout the years, and they change it up a little bit, and they put the characters in more dire situations. I don't know. I felt like, yeah, they try to replicate that here, and it's not as powerful. I thought it was a decent time. Specifically because of the sequence that we are going to discuss now,
Yeah, yeah,
because
definitely,
this
definitely the highlights of the movie for sure.
yeah
Probably the same with all the major action sequences from the last few films. I saw them promoted before the movie came out, so I know there's a big underwater sequence, and I know there's a sequence when he's climbing up and down on a plane, but it does not ruin it at all that you know it's going
yeah
to happen, because you're just watching it. And I think knowing that it actually happened makes it all the better as well.
yeah because okay, so this is the centerpiece of the whole movie, the entire first part of this film, and in a way the previous movie too is building up to this moment. This is the most impossible mission yet. Ethan needs to locate a submarine lost at sea, get inside, retrieve a sort of source code for these AI they need to destroy, and he needs to get inside and then escape and come back up. And his team needs to find where he is and prepare this hyperbaric chamber where he can safely decompress without dying. And I mean, you never think Ethan's gonna die during this scene. For one, he's Tom Cruise. Secondly, there's still like at least an hour of movie left. So you're not afraid for his life. And even then, the sequence is so gripping. It's so well done. Once he's out in the water, he leaves the submarine. Obviously, we don't have dialogue anymore. It's just him, it's the ocean, amazing sound design, incredible soundtrack. And the silent storytelling here is off the charts. It's like the way they manage to clearly communicate to the viewer everything that's happening without using any words, showing his thought process, his problem solving abilities. At some point, plugs this in like this battery to light up the submarine. I don't care how it can work something like this on a submarine that has been submerged for years, but whatever. And then he finds himself locked in this room and has to escape the submarine through this tube, this launch
That's
tube
like
for
the one
for the
line of dialogue. He looks over and he goes, "Torpedo tube." and,
yeah.
and there you go. That's all we need.
and that's probably been added because someone on one of those screenings were like, I don't understand what is this,
Why is there a hole in the ship?
there's torpedoes in the room and there's a hole shaped like a torpedo. I cannot connect the dots. But anyway,
And that bit was so cool when he's making his way to the torpedo tube and torpedoes are rolling off and like into the water and they're almost crushing him. Like it's so cool.
and then he has to escape the submarine through this tube, and he can't fit through it with the whole diving equipment, so he has to strip down, and you can see that, like, by the way, he's ripped. He's a 65-year-old man and he has the most amazing fucking six-pack. Anyway, that's why he doesn't eat popcorn, I guess.
We'll make a short of you just glazing Tom Cruise's body out of that.
Yes, please. Man, I mean,
I'll just clip him ripping off his scuba top
and just put my face over it, like, oh my god.
Have you ever seen a physique like that?
Dude, I mean, that Illuminati like diet probably works wonders, I guess.
Oh, hell yeah.
When you're eating angel wings instead of chicken wings, that makes a difference in your diet. Anyway, it's an incredible sequence. He has to push the oxygen tank through the tube in front of him, and it's so tense. It's just so well done. It's an incredible sequence, incredible both in the sense that you can't believe what's happening, and in that what's happening is as far removed from reality as you can think. But you buy it, and I think this is the great achievement of these movies, that they make you buy into these impossible scenarios, and you're just like, oh my god, how is he gonna get out? Okay, of course he's gonna get out. Of course they're gonna find him and put him in this hyperbaric chamber.
It's the how. Yeah, you're always thinking, okay, cool, I know he's gonna make it through this, but how is he gonna do it? Because I am not seeing any direction to victory here. But it's I mean, I will say this stunt did lose me a bit at the end. Like, my suspension of disbelief
when he goes back up, yeah.
I thought the way he's doing when he's floating back up and you can see he's really struggling for breath and he's like convulsing just before he reaches the surface. I thought all that was amazing. Just the way he then gets out and wakes up and he's in the decompression chamber.
I thought it was a dream sequence. I was like, so confused.
I thought that was it stretched it a little bit too far at the end, but like everything that happened within the submarine, I assume he'd probably be frozen to death going up in his pants, just from the submarine all the way to the top. But...
insane. Well, yeah, insane. But it's Ethan Hunt. It's Jesus, man. Like, he can survive this.
But it's the little details in between, like you said. But I imagine when you're writing and constructing this scene, Tom Cruise might come up with the idea of being like, oh, I have to go through this tube, but my suit doesn't fit, so I'll take off my suit and do all this. And, maybe in a different filmmaker or the people that maybe made the older ones, they'd be like, oh, nobody wants to see you stop and take off your suit and then do the stunt, and it's just a bit of a waste of time, it seems. But no, it's those little details that make it feel realistic.
Real. Yeah. That's the beauty. That's what I love about Mission Impossible, is everything, like, something always goes wrong. And they have to, like, I cannot, like, every time I watch a Mission Impossible movie, a new Mission Impossible movie, I was like, okay, this is the plan. How is the plan not going to work? And what are you going to do to solve the problem? Like, halfway through, like, and it originated in the first one when he has to go down with the iconic shot of him on the rope, and he can't touch the floor, and like the sweat is almost gonna touch like it's gonna fall down, and everything. Like the fact that they add this little wrinkle every time, it's so funny and it's fun, and just yeah, it makes you really like you moving, like the idea of just like you're watching this, you're engaged in the sequence, and then oh my god, something is going wrong, and you move on to your seat, and like you're like, oh okay, so how are they going to solve this? Like you feel really engaged in the sequence because they keep surprising you with these little moments.
They need little to no dialogue within these sequences, because what the franchise as a whole does quite
The
well.
dialogue ruins it, honestly.
Yeah, but what the franchise does quite well on the whole is before they do these big moments, we get all the characters sitting around a table discussing the minutiae of the plan. And so the audience knows the danger, we know the scale, we know the objectives, we are completely aware of what needs to happen and what Ethan needs to do in these moments. Whereas sometimes you get thrown into an action sequence and you're like, all these things are happening, and you're like, what's going on? I don't understand the stakes, I don't understand the objective. Whereas in each of the big moments in the Mission Impossible films, they do a very good job of being like, you have to do this. And especially like when he's with Mr. Milchek's crew, and they're talking about all the dangers of dropping to that level of pressure and coming back up, and they're all like, oh, you're going to get the bends, and you're going to get this, and this is going to happen, and it makes it all, increases the stakes of everything. It's
Yeah, I could not wait for that moment in the submarine. One, because the first half of the movie, unfortunately, is not really engaging, and two, because they kept building up to it so well. So, yeah, really, really well done. Something that I did not like that much, we were mentioning, him coming back up and waking up in this chamber with the Hayley Atwell's character Grace. I have a bone to pick with these movies, specifically the last two movies, because they killed off Rebecca Ferguson's character, Ilsa.
just replaced her with Hayley Atwell, basically.
And I guess there was some scheduling conflict. She was doing something else, probably Silo. I am not sure. She
Oh
probably
my
Dune,
god!
maybe Dune.
Have you seen Silo?
I haven't seen Silo. People have recommended.
She should not have done that for this. My
Yeah.
god.
But she was one of the best additions to the franchise. She was introduced in 5. She was a really fun character, and I just don't understand. Like they killed her off in a way that almost felt like they were gonna reveal later that they hid the fact that she survived, and they hid her from the entity, and she went off the grid for some reason, and she would come back at the end to help Ethan. Like I kept expecting something like that to happen because of the way they decided to do it in the first movie, and then they just replace her with Hayley Atwell, which I liked in the first movie, like in Bad Reckoning. But here, she is stripped of almost any personality. Her personality is, I love Ethan, but I cannot show it too much, and he cannot kiss me because I'm too young for him, and it would be inappropriate. Like they exchange these longing looks of like, oh my god, you're so amazing, you're Jesus. I would give you the key to the world because you would be the only person in life that would be able to save the world and keep it safe forever. And I'm like, you were so spunky and fun in the first movie. What happened to you? Like there's a few moments of that in this, but she was just like looking at Ethan like he was, I don't know, Chris Hemsworth. And
And
I'm
it's like,
sorry.
why didn't they kiss in that pressure chamber at
It
the end?
felt like it
that
was
that was the moment where they should have done that. And it's like, okay, well, why are you setting up this romance for no reason if it's not going to go anywhere?
the reason is that Ethan cares about his team so much, and he cares about
So
humanity,
much he
and
wants to fuck them.
yeah, well, no, you see, like is not someone that would take advantage of the extreme passion that Ailey Hatwell would feel for him. Is above all that, is Jesus. And
He only fucks danger.
exactly, and he fucks it in the face.
Because I think in that's kind of throughout these films, all the love interests are so underdeveloped. I think it only really works when he has an ex-wife that he wants to protect. Like
Yeah,
that made
that
sense,
was
and it
that was
you don't
good.
have to focus on them being like a couple and any drama that comes with that. It's
You
just
have
somebody
Michelle
there
Monaghan.
who's
You have
yeah
Michelle Monaghan in the third one, and she's this love interest and wife, and because he's settled down, and then he's brought back into this life of espionage and danger, and he's like, okay, I need to leave you, and then you don't see her for a whole movie, and you're like, oh, they just forgot that he was married. No, they bring it back in the following movie, and they're like, oh wait, he has this person in his life that he cares about, and he has to protect her, and I
hmm,
felt like it's okay, it was appropriate the way they did it. I don't know. Um,
yeah.
Clearly, it was. Yeah.
Here it's so underdeveloped, and especially when she's her character wise and what she brings to the team is not that different necessarily than what um, Mantis brings to the team. Like there's so many characters in the team at the end. Like the other guy, like Dagus, whatever his name was, the other
Oh yeah.
operative guy who joins their crew. You got him. You've got Mantis. You had you had the ex Langley guy whose Inuit wife decided to join the crew as well, which was I
Love
thought
it.
was.
Loved it so much. When
I honestly, it made me laugh when the CIA guys have them all lined up in the cave, and they've basically got them caught in their meet with
and who are
Gabriel,
you?
and he's like, this is your elite squad, and it pans down, and it's like this old couple, and then all these just randos. Um,
And to just as a reminder of how much of a Mission Impossible nerd I am, when they introduce him, when like they go into the thing and they show him for the first time, and he goes like he's bringing tea or something, I
yeah, yeah.
immediately recognized him. I was like, oh my
Did you?
god, it's him. I haven't seen him in any other movie for 20 years, but that's him. That's the guy who shed his pants in Mission Impossible 1.
Like I said about the like showing reverence to the old stuff, and like having
Yeah,
the reference to the rabbit's foot and having that play a role in this
yeah.
film's plot. Like that's how you do a good callback reference. Like he actually had a part to play in the story. There was a reason they went to go see him. He played a role in the end. It wasn't just, oh, he's the guy who grabbed a knife in Mission Impossible 1, even though they do show you that flashback. But they just did it. It was a nice touch. It's
I
like
love
nicely
that.
weaved into the story.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
fact that his wife came along, I thought that was silly.
I
Like,
mean,
and
yeah.
especially there's such a funny line when he's the CIA guy is like going down. He's like, "Oh, I recognize you, Dunlow," and he's like, "Yeah, I used to work at Langley," sort of thing. And then he turns around, "This is my wife, Tapisa." And that's it. It's like, yeah, we don't
Yeah.
care.
There's a bunch of weird lines in here. Even what's his face? The other actor, the operative who chases Ethan Hunt around with
Who
the other
shakes his
guy.
hand at the end?
Yeah, they shake hand,
Yeah,
and they
I like
do
that
the
guy.
little,
He's
and
he's from
they do the
Boardwalk Empire.
yeah, he's great, and they do the little like Schwarzenegger car weather
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like, but they don't have the same muscle to pull it off. But yeah, he chases, he wants to get Ethan Hunt so much in the first movie, and that's his character. He just wants to find Ethan Hunt, and this other colleague of his that then joins the team is like, but maybe he's the good guy and we shouldn't chase him down this much, and he's like, no, I want to find him. And then we have a throwaway line in this at the beginning where we find out that he is the son of John Boyd's character in the
yeah,
first
yeah.
Mission Impossible. For some reason, they decided to direct retcon this, and then it
Now,
doesn't have anything to do with anything.
and there you have a prime example of of a bit of a retcon or a flashback or callback, whatever you want to call it, not weaved into the story. Well,
I was so confused. I was like, why
and
are
they show another
you?
flashback of John Vaught at the end when they have a bit of a confrontation on the plane, and he's like, we gotta trust each other. It's what the entity won't think we'll do. And they show
Yeah.
you the flashback of John Vaught, and it's like, what was the point in that?
Well, they trusted each other, and he fucked him. He fucked him up. So yeah. Um,
What else? And I mean, anything. Almost every line Mantis said was silly. I just thought her involvement was she was so unnecessary in this film.
Yeah, you keep calling her Mantis, and I was like, oh yes, that's the same actor. Pom Klementif is her name.
Clementif, yeah.
Yeah, she's well, she has very few lines because she's a silent badass. But yeah, she was weird. She was a weird addition to this. They gave her more importance that was needed.
Yeah,
Like I don't know, like yes, she was redeemed in the first part. At the end, she helped them, and that's fine. But you can't just leave her at that. You don't
that
have to
should have been
bring her
it.
back. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly, because she's like you said, she's redeemed. Fine, move on. Let's say you've got enough side characters in the team to work with and bounce off here. That you don't need her in it. There was a bit when she's stitching Benji up.
I love that though. Love
It
that
was
sequence.
it was a decent scene, but then Benji's like, oh, you have 100 milliseconds or something to grab the optical drive before the entity gets in or something like that, and Pom turns around and she goes, "The blink of an eye."
Yeah, because they
So
said
yep,
it earlier.
yes, yeah. Oh, thank you, Pom. Thank you for that.
Well, yeah, I know what you mean. Like they over explain stuff all the time, but they want you to be engaged and not wondering like what does that mean? Like they want you to be in the scene and know what's happening and why it's happening. And I feel like they do a very good job most of the time, and then sometimes they overdo it and they over explain and it's annoying, and I agree. But in that case it was like, oh, it's just it's a little level of gravity, like, oh, it's a blink of an eye, and you're like, you need to do it in a blink of an eye because you are the greatest fucking thief of all time and no one can feel your hands in their pocket or something. So yeah.
And
um,
you had that Dagus guy who, when Ludlow and his wife decide, oh, I'll stay back and defuse the bomb.
yeah.
He's like, oh, I'll stay back because I got nothing to do in there. Like, oh, what?
You have nothing to
What do you
do
mean?
here either.
Yeah. No, but we actually don't need you here. You don't have to die, dude. If you really want to die, then just maybe you could be the only one that stays out here. I thought that was bizarre.
I thought they were gonna kill off him.
I thought they were setting him up to turn, and he was gonna be a villain or something.
That would have been
like,
smart.
I was like, that was such a weird line. Why would he do that? And it was just a stupid
Because
line.
they want you to know where everyone is at every time, at every moment. Like they want you to have a clear concept of like spatial, like where everyone is in any given scene, and this is a result of that.
And I want to see the full wide shot of Tapisa running that distance in 10 seconds. I want to see that.
Yeah, exactly. It's not believable at all. Well, I mean, she's clearly trained to survive in very harsh conditions. So moving on, because I think we've talked about this long enough. I think we go to the other great action sequence here, which is the plane chase. They do this on old school planes because the entity and technology, they can't have that. So and I found hilarious the line when Gabriel holds them hostage in the I don't remember what it was. It was like underground in a cave, and it's like, oh, and I am gonna leave on my plane now because you're gonna all die, and there's a spare one just in case. Like he said that there so that we knew that Ethan had another plane to hop onto if he missed the first one, and that was so funny to me. But yeah, just an excuse for a cool action sequence with Ethan Hunt in the sky.
But this was amazing, though.
Yeah.
I think when I saw some of the behind the scenes, I assume he has at least one like harness,
He does
around his waist or something. Yeah, good. Because I'm like,
ropes.
That's fucking ridiculous, man.
Well, we've done something similar in Fallout with the helicopter.
I thought that was also great as well. Like when he climbs up the rope and gets into the chopper. Yeah, and that was sick.
Yeah. And in Rogue Nation, the opening action sequence is he climbs on a plane that's taking off, and he holds on the outside, and then he has to go back inside. And he there, like I think he had like special contact lenses on his eyes to avoid, like, because he couldn't show like the goggles and stuff. Here they work in the fact that he needs to find the goggles because he can't see shit. And I thought that's another little element that adds to it. It's like, oh, it's realistic to an extent. He needs the goggles to survive.
Because if you were making that on a green screen, they wouldn't be like, fuck it, he doesn't need goggles, what's the point? Like, it's not, people, no one's going to notice these things. But no, it's those little details which sell the stunt.
The only moments that were not convincing were the moments where Gabriel was in shot, because clearly those moments were not shot in real life, in a real plane. They were shot on a green screen in a studio, because he's not a stuntman like Tom Cruise is. And is so funny. Like, he's like, oh, I won, you are going to die.
Oh god.
And then he just dies like a bitch. It's incredible. Like, I felt you die like you lived, Gabriel, like a useless piece
exactly.
of shit.
I thought so. He's, Gabriel jumps off and he's like, well, I'm the only one with a parachute, and then he hits his head and he dies. And I was like, oh cool, Tom Cruise is going to jump off the plane, grab Gabriel in the air, chuck him out of his parachute and get inside his parachute, and that's how he'll survive. And I thought that would have been a way better action sequence than him just climbing back into the second seat and being like, oh, actually, no, there's a parachute here too.
Where did the second parachute come from? And also, where did the second parachute? Yeah. Okay. Well, but why would he say that he only had one parachute?
Well, exactly. Why that line then became silly, because it's like, I've got the only parachute except from the spare one up in the seat that you're hanging onto right now. So, but don't worry about that. Yeah, but, I think all parachutes have a secondary parachute that you can pull out in case the first one doesn't work.
I felt like that was so cheap. Like, they want you to believe that he doesn't have a parachute, then he finds a parachute, but the parachute catches fire. Like, you're like, okay, so he's gonna fall to his death. No, there's a second parachute, but they don't establish that, so it feels cheap when he actually is on the ground with the second parachute. It's like, okay, yeah, he survived, but like, why and how?
And it's like, well, I suppose maybe because they're pitching it as the final movie, but he's not going to die in that fashion. You're like, oh god, no. In the last movie, Tom Cruise fell 1,000 feet and got smushed into pate on the floor. Like, that was his big moment. So if you know the audience isn't going to believe that, then why not just show him at least trying to get that second parachute out as he's falling to the ground?
He either dies in an explosion or like trying to stop like a nuclear device to go off, and like they shoot him in the shoulder or something. Like, I don't know, like they can't.
Yeah, it'll be a heroic death, not a splat on the ground. So I thought that could have been a bit better.
Yeah, well, it's a good sequence. It doesn't, like, it ends on a little bit of a, I don't know, it wasn't as hype as other moments in the movie, and then you have this ending that is very unclear on what they want to do with the franchise next. Like, oh, they all gather around in Trafalgar Square and they look at each other meaningfully, and then they disappear in the crowd. Unseen agents of justice that try to hold chaos at bay in this modern world, and we need to thank them for their service. And I'm like, yes, but like, just have him retire, man. Like, what the fuck? Like why don't you just, he's like, oh, this is gonna be my last mission. I am too old for this now. But if one day another great agent comes along and he needs someone to tutor them and mentor them into this new role, I'll be there because I am the best. Like, it would have been more meaningful. You hint at the arrival of someone else or some new threat.
I thought that's kind of what they were doing with the little nods to all the other characters. It's like, oh, hey, now any of these guys can now be the next Ethan Hunt sort of
What
thing.
About Jeremy Renner? He was in like 3 of these.
Mission Impossible, didn't he? Yeah.
He was in 3 Mission Impossible movies back to back. He was in the 4th one. He was in the... Wait, actually, no.
He was in Ghost Protocol. I remember him in that one.
Well, he was in Ghost Protocol. He was in 5, but then he wasn't in Fallout, I guess.
No, he wasn't in Fallout.
So he wasn't. He's in 2 movies, but he was supposed to, at some point, take over the role. Like, they were kind of like...
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were they were, yeah, like, and then he did the Bourne spin-off movie, so like he was involved in this kind of spy stuff, but never took off, unfortunately
I
for him.
don't I don't think you could ever get somebody. I don't think you could ever get somebody to replace him, Tom Cruise, in these films. It'd have to be a very different style of movie, I think. But yeah, I thought the ending was. Well, I thought the ending was terrible of this one. Like, doing the voiceover. Luther's voiceover is nice, and his like final message being recorded on the device.
By the way, I feel so betrayed by this. Like, Luther gets cancer off screen, and then he's like working on this encryption key from a basement somewhere in London, and then he explodes. I was so confused at the beginning. I was like, did I miss something? What happened to Luther? And then I was like, okay, so Vig Rhames is, is a little old. I guess he doesn't want to do this anymore. The last few movies he's clearly been.
I'll do the movie, but I'll just sit in bed.
Can you bring my bed to the set and I'll just stay there? I'm tired, man. And I understand that, but like when they kill him off at the beginning, then I was like, okay, so no one else is going to die for the rest of the movie. Kind of like Thunderbolts when they kill off Taskmaster, and you're like, okay, so no one else is gonna die now.
I did think there was potential that maybe
Benji would die.
Could die. Yeah, I thought maybe Benji would die, like another one of the classic. More classic.
You can't kill Benji, come on.
But yeah, so I liked giving Luther the sort of final voiceover of everything. But then we cut away from Ethan getting up from the parachute, and then we go straight to the president, and we see her having, saying thank you to her, or saying hello to her son. And we get all these flashes of all these other characters, and it's like, I don't think the audience cares about these characters that we've had for 1 or 2 movies as much as you think they do. This should all be focused on Ethan. Yeah, it should have been pure closure for him and his team.
Just give me an extra scene of him just being a normal person at home.
Yeah, I kind of thought the last scene was going to be like Luther's, a little private funeral for Luther. And where him and the team are there, and they all get to say their goodbyes. And
that would have been nice.
Yeah, I thought better. Better than them just walking around Trafalgar Square and all looking at each other, doing like the Michael Caine, Christian Bale Batman scene. It's like, we won't say nothing, but we know exactly what's happening, sort of thing. So I thought the ending was very messy in that sense, and it's like you're kind of forgetting this is all about Tom Cruise, really, Ethan Hunt. So it's the side characters in this one were way too many and didn't supplement the story very well.
Yeah, agreed. So what kind of grade would you give this movie and the previous one at this point? Like I'm curious, like from Fallout onwards.
Fallout definitely the best by miles. I think Fallout is probably like a 7.5 out of 10 for me.
Yeah,
really enjoyed it. Had a couple really good twists and turns, and Sean Harris and Henry Cavill as your villains. That's a great lineup right there.
Totally.
So I'd give that one probably a 7.5. Dead Reckoning probably gets a 5.5, 6 for me, and this maybe goes back up to a 7.
I liked the first part more than this, honestly.
Did you? Okay.
I love the train sequence, and I feel like some of the sequences, like the car chase in Italy, like it's by classic setting for a chase scene like this. But the way they have this comedy with Hayley Atwell character who's trying to escape, but he wants to stay with her. So they have they're handcuffed together and they need to drive the car. But it's I don't know. It felt like the very inventive, very kinetic. Sorry. And fun, while this has more of a somber tone, and this makes the first half really drag until we get to him. The film picks up in pace and it becomes interesting when Ethan throws himself into the water and the people find him on the submarine. Like that's the moment
that was
where
a really cool scene.
Yeah, when they emerge from the water and they pick him up.
That was cool.
So I think Dead Reckoning was more consistent throughout in its tone and its pacing, while this has 2 incredible sequences, but the rest of the stuff really left something to be desired.
I just think for me those action sequences were better in this one. The submarine and the plane were totally a lot better than the train. but similar in quality, I'd say.
Absolutely, yeah. No, they are pretty much up there. I'd give well, Fallout is an 8.5 for me, as well as Rogue Nation, and then Dead Reckoning and Final Reckoning. I guess they are both around a 7 ish. Yeah, like.
Yeah, fair.
But I like Dead Reckoning more.
Yeah. Well, fair. And I mean, it's
Also,
definitely made me want to go back and watch Ghost Nation, and I might go back and watch the older ones again.
oh, it's such a fun marathon to do, man. Because especially the first ones are all very different from each other. Like,
Yeah.
as we said, we have Brian De Palma, we have John Woo, we have J.J. Abrams, probably J.J. Abrams' best movie, which is not saying much, but like it's a very competently made action film, even though it's probably one of my least favorite ones. Ghost Protocol is just redonkulous, like they called it on How I Met Your Mother. And then from then on, we have great, consistent action movies back to back with like all the last four movies are just chef's kiss, just the best. So yeah, love these movies. Also, a little cliff note at the end. Shout out to my friend Matt Malecki, who he played a role, well, the main role basically, in this short film that I made some years back when we were still living in London together. He's this guy is the protagonist of that short that I made, and he is in the first of these two movies. And I think I caught a glimpse of him in here too. He's in there for like a second. He's one of the operators on the submarine
Oh
in
right.
the flashback at the beginning of the first movie, who dies a horrible death. And then we see him again, I think, very briefly in the second one too. So yeah, it's funny to think that he was in my movie, and then years
What
later, he was in a real movie for a second. So,
what short film was that?
Baked Beans.
Who was he in Baked Beans? The main
Is
guy.
the Polish guy? Yeah.
I assumed it would be him.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
So well done, Matt. You are in a movie with Tom Cruise. So yeah.
Cool. Well, that was our review of Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning, which, who knows, maybe the last of the franchise, maybe not, probably not, knowing the world we live in. And there'll be a spin-off show on Amazon in 5 years' time, and we'll get the origin story for Benji. And
well, they're going back to TV. Mission Impossible started on TV, so
yeah,
would make
and
sense.
we'll see all of that, I'm sure, in the years to come. Once Tom Cruise's cold dead hands have let go of that property, it'll be hoard out. Out by everyone, I'm sure. And so for this is we'll set up our next discussion. We're doing our top 3 action movies, and we'll start off with a few of our honourable mentions, but you wanted to set the tone a bit, sort of defining what an action film is, because as we were doing this, I found it quite hard.
Yeah,
a lot of my favorites are definitely more cross genres, and spread across multiple genres. I didn't, maybe an action film can be many things, more so than most other genre films, I'd say.
absolutely. It's like a hard genre to pin down. And I think we should lay out our parameters for what constitutes an action movie. It's such an all encompassing term. And I was looking at a list to kind of draw inspiration from, and remember what movies to include in my personal list. And there were so many great films that I wouldn't necessarily consider just action movies, right? Like movies where the action part is the more prevalent aspect of the experience. Like if you look for best action movies on Google, like one of the first results will be The Dark Knight. But the action is definitely not the best part of that film. Nolan is not amazing with fight scenes or stunt choreography. There's some amazing scenes for sure, but I wouldn't necessarily include it in a best action movie. Maybe a best superhero movies list.
It's a tough one, because all superhero films do fit into the genre of action.
Absolutely.
But it's a tough one.
But they are different. Like, so I didn't include any superhero movies because I think that would be a discussion for another time. Or even Star Wars or Indiana Jones are considered action movies, but I'd put them in different categories like action adventure or fantasy. So to me, an action movie is a movie where the action set piece is the central element of that everything else revolves around. And I will explain what I mean. Like action set piece meaning, like in Mission Impossible, especially from the fourth one onward, like we said, the plot is written around the stunts that Tom Cruise wants to do. I want to climb the Burj Khalifa. Okay, let's write a plot that gets me there. I want to hold my breath underwater for 10 minutes. Okay, let's say there's a submerged server room somewhere and you need to steal a code from it. I mean, it's not always like that, because very few movies are done this way. Only Mission Impossible movies basically, but like even Marvel movies are sort of made this way. They previs, they were like, okay, so we want to do this scene this way, so what can we write that justifies the characters being in this situation and doing this specific thing.
Like when they
um
have that massive helicarrier dropping out the sky in Black Widow, and then they're like, oh, around this, we'll do like a movie about family.
exactly.
And
So
loss.
yeah, that's why the worst movies in the franchise, everything feels so disjointed and half baked. So it's a risky thing to do movies this way. You need a great director working with a great team to say, okay, I have an idea and I want to develop that idea into a story. So maybe there's a new technology that you want to explore visually, or you have a new concept for like an action shot that has never been done before. What I mean is, action movies are movies where an idea for something cool and unique is what originates everything else. It's not like I
Yeah.
want to tell this story about this character going on this journey. It's, oh, I have a cool thing to do, like bullet time, and we make a story around that concept. I want to do action scenes using this technology or highlight this particular technique. Let's write a movie that allows for that idea to make sense. um, you know I could just list Tom Cruise movies here: Top Gun Maverick, Collateral, in a way, is something like that. Every action geek knows The Raid or The Raid 2, and all the films that were
See, I'd
inspired.
say Collateral's wouldn't class.
But you do have the concept of, okay, we move around on this car, there's a lot of action revolving around this
Yeah,
car
yeah.
and speeding and moving around. Like it's like speed is an action movie, but it's
Oh yeah,
not
yeah, definitely.
like um you know Snowpiercer, Dread, like those are movies inspired by The Raid. So yeah,
Yes, yeah, yeah.
it's stuff that has this central element. Is okay, let's do action, but it's on a train. Like, or like, let's do action, but it's in a skyscraper. Or yeah.
Just where yeah, like you said, where action is the central, one of the central focuses. Because I think all these films we're going to list are great stories. Still, they're and you get great character development, great arcs, but they, the crux is these maybe two or three climactic massive action sequences throughout the
That
story.
define the experience of the film. Yeah. But like, then Titanic would classify as that, because you have, James Cameron wanted to do the Titanic sinking scene, and then he made a huge romantic movie around it. So yeah, like
And it's an
it's
epic action movie.
but so yeah, it's a bit hard to pin
it's a,
down.
it's a little bit
But
subjective, basically.
and it is, like, every list is subjective, and I
Yeah,
have,
yeah.
especially my honorable mentions are just movies that I thought would be fun to talk about, and are interesting in their own way because of what they do with action. But they're not like, oh my god, this is the best movie ever made. It's just a subjective opinion on something that I watched. So yeah.
Yeah, a couple of my honorable mentions are more. I suppose I put them in there more because um, they would have made the list had they been a bit more action heavy or action focused. But they're still action something else. But maybe because they're more focused on that other genre that they didn't quite make the cut for me. Yeah, we'll start with our honorable mentions. So we'll go one for one because I've got three honorable mentions along with my three top choices.
Nice.
And my first one, which is up there in one of my favorite movies of all time, But I think because it's probably central aspect is the comedy. It maybe doesn't quite make the cut here for me, but Hot Fuzz.
Oh my god, really? Oh, that's such a good pick.
I
I
mean, it's
love.
very action heavy, and the action in it is brilliant. So well
Yeah,
directed, well made, and it's all incorporated perfectly into the story. But I'd say the this is more of a comedy than anything. But I mean, it's an action comedy, so
that is a fair choice, man, because the action, as you said, is really well done. It's inspired by real action movies, and it was just Edgar Wright's excuse to kind of like replicate and reinterpret cool action sequences that he liked. But
yeah, I'm
yeah,
pretty sure I've seen some behind the scenes, and he said himself he was like, I want to make an American style action cop drama, but set in like a countryside of England. And so the action is central focus still, but
in the
I think
latter half of the movie, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But maybe just because it's so damn funny. I'd more class it. If this was a top three comedies list, it probably makes it in there for
Oh my
sure.
god, it's probably like, yeah, it's I love this movie, man. I would have not for a million years thought of putting it here, but it makes sense, honestly. So yeah.
Yeah, perfect film. Like a 10 out of
So
10 this is for me. I absolutely love Hot Fuzz. It's
pitch it to me for as someone who has never seen it, who doesn't know anything about it. Like what it is,
oh god.
what is it? Is it part of like a larger franchise of some kind?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Well, I'll be shocked. I'll be shocked if you're into movies and you haven't seen this film because it appears on many people's lists of not only the best comedy film of all time, but it's one of the best movies made of all time. And I think, you hear interviews with other filmmakers and they hold this film, and so it's created by a guy called Edgar Wright, English director, who got fame from a TV series called Spaced, and working with Nick Frost and Simon Pegg, and they formed this little creative team between themselves, and they had their big break with Shaun of the Dead, a zombie comedy film, and kind of from there, the success of that birthed this trilogy of films that they call the Cornetto trilogy. You have Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz was the second one, and then the end of the. This is the end. No, not this is the
the
end. What's it
World's
called?
End.
The World's End was the final one, and definitely the worst of the trilogy. But we are talking about two 10 out of 10 films here, perfect movies. Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, they're incredible.
I love all three, to be honest. And
I think the World's End's still good, but
Hot
it's
Fuzz is definitely a mile above both the first and the third, in my opinion. Even though I like them all. So
yeah, yeah. So rewatchable, and they're the kind of films that even on like the fifth or sixth watch, you're picking up little callbacks at the beginning or references that are then weaved into the story at the end. It's like Edgar Wright's. This is his. These are his masterpiece movies, and they're just perfect in every single way. Performances, they got a heart to them. You know, Simon Pegg and Nick Frost have great chemistry on screen. And so Hot Fuzz, basically, like I said, action comedy set in a kind of like a little Yorkshire countryside town, and we have Nicholas Angel, who's played by Simon Pegg,
we start
and
off
he
in London.
start off in London, and he's the best cop in town, and he's doing too good a job at cleaning up crime, so his superiors
Such
send
a
him.
great premise, by the way.
Yeah. So his superiors send him to a really sleepy, quiet countryside village where he can be their main detective, and to basically, shafting him, putting him on the shelf. And there he meets their police team, and it's Nick Frost, and they're all sort of a bit bumbling fools, and they don't really take the job very seriously. But as things go on, he uncovers this massive conspiracy and all these murders that are going on in the town, and they're all just living happy lives and thinking, no, it's not a murder. It's just an accident. They're all like that kind of.
It's incredible. And what a cast. You mentioned the team there, and you have Olivia Colman, Jim Broadbent, and
Paddy
other
Considine.
Yeah, other Edgar Wright alumni as well.
Yeah. And then
Um,
also all the people that live in the village, all the older actors are all legendary British actors from, the 80s and 70s. You got like Timothy Dalton and all these other very recognizable actors. Um, and it's just there's so many great characters and great moments in Hot Fuzz.
the
It's
editing in this movie is godlike, like the way we transition from scene to scene, and those transition add to the meaning of the scene itself, and like the framing of certain shots when you have Timothy Dalton smiling, this murderous smile, and then you have his like photo in the back, the same
He's
smile. It's
looking
just like
exactly. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like it's so funny for no reason. It's just incredible.
There's not a
um
wasted shot or edit or anything. Everything is so like with with reason to it. Everything's so deliberate. Every choice made, and it's filmmaking at its best.
yeah, and Edgar Wright does this thing a lot in his movies, where he will set up a line in the first half and then reference it back or call back to it at the end. He does it all the time, and I think this movie does it the best.
Oh,
Like,
it's so funny the way they do it in
even
this.
even the smallest thing, like when he gets to the kind of like bed and breakfast, where he has his room,
I
and
knew you were going to reference this one.
the old lady
Yeah.
is like doing crossword puzzle, and he's like, hag.
She's like, three down, old woman or something, old crone or something like that.
Sorry, it's the answer to the crossword puzzle. And then at the end, when she's trying to kill him, it's like, hag. It's like fascist, and it's so good.
And you got things like just the no luck catching them killers then, and then
It's
Nick
just the
Frost is
one
like
killer.
just the one killer actually, and that all replays in his
It's
mind
just the
later
one
on.
swan, really.
Yeah. Oh, it's genius. Honestly, it's the kind of film that you would have expected. I don't know whether this is the case or not. Like that and Shaun of the Dead, because they have very similar structure and a lot of callbacks and a lot of foreboding with the dialogue, or foreshadowing. Sorry, with the dialogue. But they're the kind of films that like his magnum opus. Like you'd think he's been sitting and working on these all his life because they are just so perfect.
Yeah, I like almost all Edgar Wright movies, but this one is definitely the best one he's ever made, and
Yeah.
he hasn't accomplished, like he hasn't come close to this level of just. I keep chasing it, man. I keep going into Edgar Wright movies, expecting to be blown away like the first time I watched this, and it never
I
happens.
know. It
Yeah.
may never happen again. But and I know Nick Frost and Simon Pegg have chirped up saying, "Hey, let's get the band back together. Let's work on another movie together." And God, like I said, it's going to be tough to like recapture the magic of those first two movies.
Yeah.
Because they're so revered and they're so perfect and they're great of their time as well. But yeah, glowing. Even though it's an honourable mention, didn't make my top three. It's one of my all time favourite films.
It's a great pick. The action in the end is really fun and well choreographed and bloody. Like, yeah, the way it's surprising, like everything comes back. They fight in that little town, and the big the mine that goes off at the end, and you think everyone's dead, but then everyone
Yeah.
survived for some reason. It's just so incredible. Yeah, yeah,
And all the it's a love letter to other action movies as well. They do things that happen in Bad Boys. They
Point Break.
emulate scenes from Point Break, and it not only sending a love letter to them as well, but it's creating its own brilliant action sequences in the film too. And other stuff where like Nick Frost is like, "Have you ever driven a car while shooting a gun outside, or have you ever rolled over the bonnet of your car whilst firing two pistols at the same time?" And all that shit happens in the last act of the movie. Is fucking great.
It's incredible, man. This is top tier filmmaking right here. A very different pick for me. And as I said, this was very difficult to decide what to include. But I settled on a movie that I think is a good pick for many reasons. First of all, it's a very good movie. It's a Japanese movie from the 2000s called Battle Royale. Have you ever seen this film? I hope you did.
Of course, love this movie. I watched it when I was very, very young, me and my
Too
brother,
young.
and it stuck with me forever, and rightfully so because it's a brilliant film.
So, Japanese dystopian action film directed by Kinji Fukasaku, who's a great director actually of classic Japanese Yakuza movies. And he was 70 when he made this. So, little reminder here that age doesn't mean anything with this kind of stuff. And it's unfortunately his last movie.
You tell that to Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah, well, when the dementia is involved, things start to go awry. It's his last movie. He died a couple years after, and it's probably its most well known. Well, definitely its most well known movie. It's based on the 1999 novel of the same name, which I read. And it follows a group of junior high school students forced to fight to the death by a totalitarian Japanese government. The novel is weird. I didn't love it as much as I thought I would, based on how much I like the movie itself. It's a very repetitive read. It's told from the different perspectives of the characters of all the students on the island, right? You follow basically all of them chapter by chapter as they try to survive on the island. So basically every chapter is, oh, you get to know a character, you learn what they like and dislike, maybe they form an alliance with another student, and then either the student betrays them or is killed or they kill each other, and
Yeah.
and it goes on for like 300 pages like this. And it's not bad, but I think the film is way more economical for obvious reasons, and it works to its benefit.
Yeah.
Outside of a few characters like the teacher that could have maybe benefited from more screen time, I think you get the gist of what the conflict is just as well in movie form, where you only catch glimpses of these characters and they need to give you just enough so you feel bad for them, but not too much that the film becomes 10 hours long. So
It's a very simple and visual premise, and action heavy, obviously. So I think it probably does lend itself better to the medium of film.
yeah, it's I think it's done so well. The film uh is so iconic and influential, and it drew controversy and was banned and excluded from distribution in several countries for a long time. It came to like, I think I watched it years later and it was still like I had to pirate it because it wasn't available anywhere. So if you watch it now, it's so funny that it got the reaction that it did, because it's not tame, but it's not even like the most violent thing ever. Like the
No,
violence itself,
it's got a kind of a campy, silly tone to it. A
yeah,
little
it's
bit.
exaggerated, it's cartoony in
Yeah.
moments, it's very like, it's almost like an anime come to life with
Yeah,
some of the
yeah.
characters.
There are
S
some genuinely creepy moments in it, for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, you got the actor who then I think Tarantino got for Kill Bill.
Yeah, yeah. The girl
Who's
who's like bullied and she
yeah,
goes
yeah, yeah,
psycho on the other girl.
yeah.
Yeah,
She's the one.
she was so creepy.
So yeah, like it's a great film. You can like or dislike this movie, but I think it deserved a mention because the way the action is implemented into the story, the way the action is the story, because the story is literally these characters having to kill each other. It's without a doubt one of the most influential action movies of the 21st century. Even
Oh
if
god,
you've
yeah.
even if you've never seen it, you've seen stuff that was inspired by this. It had a
Yeah,
huge impact on popular culture. It's
you got
thanks to,
Hunger Games.
yeah, we
You got so many spin-offs of the dropping somebody on an island and the last person survives. I mean,
I
maybe
mean,
even like the gaming, like
to,
Battle Royale. There you go.
exactly.
Yeah.
To be honest, I wrote here, like we have Battle Royale to thank or maybe blame for PUBG, Fortnite, fucking Squid Game, Alice in Borderland. And even Kill Bill would have never been made without Battle Royale. And Tarantino said this is his favorite movie, which I think sometimes he said that his favorite movie is the good and the bad and the ugly. But that's another thing. But yeah, he said once that maybe this is one of his favorite movies. So so influential, so good, so unique.
And I think especially if you haven't, because like I said, I watched it when I was quite young, so I hadn't seen anything that was derivative of this film before that, which I think made it so much better, because it's such a, it's not a unique idea anymore, because so many people have ripped off that premise, but back then it was like, oh my god, what a great premise for a story. Like, it was so original and so unique in its vision.
And the fact that it's kids and the fact that it's the government that makes them do this, it's it's a great metaphor for society. You can discuss this endlessly, and you always find something new to add to the conversation. So yeah,
and
great.
That's kind of funny, because Edgar Wright, his next movie is the remake of The Running Man.
Oh, which is another,
basically another rip-off of Battle Royale. Even though Running Man's quite old. I assume Battle Royale's older, though.
But actually, I don't think so, because
no, Running Man's like the 70s or 80s, isn't
it? 80s, yeah, 80s. Yeah. But in this movie is from the 2000s, like I think 2000. So,
but you said it's based off a book, right?
The book is from like a couple years before, though. Like, it's not even that old. Like, it was one of those instant successes.
There you go. I take everything I said back about the originality of Battle Royale.
Yeah, it copied the Running Man. The Japanese guy copied the American movie 20 years later.
But there's so many memorable characters in Battle Royale. I haven't seen it for ages, and I can vividly remember like the villainous guy with the crazy blonde spiky hair, who's like, he's the older kid who's like done it before, or then they've got the guy with the bandana who won it last time, I think. Who's really cool, and they're like the kind of heroes that go, or like the main sort of fighters that go up against each other. There's a bit like when he loses his eyes and he's got two Uzis and he's blind.
Oh my god, yes. That's
near the end of the film, and he's got like his eyes are covered in blood, he can't
and he's
see,
screaming,
and he's just firing off these Uzis, and it's such a cool, like you said, it's very anime. It's very cool.
Everything that Hunger Games did in 4 movies, Battle Royale did in 1 movie, and it did it a lot better. Hunger Games has a larger lore around the fantasy world that it's set in and whatever. I'm not saying the Hunger Games, because so many people be like, oh, Hunger Games has not a bone of originality because it copied Battle Royale. No, they're very different, but that core concept, it's executed flawlessly in Battle Royale. And when you add all this stuff to it in the Hunger Games, it becomes more like, like even the character of Katniss, like you can't really go too far with her. She kills a few people, yes, but she survives mostly because she's the protagonist of the movie and everyone loves her. Here you have even the main characters doing heinous, horrible stuff to survive, because that's what would happen when you're put in the situation like this. So I don't think, like, Hunger Games doesn't, they kill children, yes, but it's never, I don't know, like, it's not as harsh, it's not as violent, it's not as extreme.
No. Yeah. In this film, there's we do get the setup of a couple main characters who you think will survive, but everybody feels it in imminent danger the whole time in this film. Then there's no Ethan Hunt here that's gonna make it out of all these dire situations.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen. We don't have a Jesus here that can save you. So go watch Battle Royale if you haven't. It's a really good time.
Yeah, great choice. So another one of mine, Edge of Tomorrow, keeping on the Tom Cruise theme.
Nice. I wanted to include this, and then I was like, I want to talk about this, like in a sci-fi list of some sort. I love this movie. So yeah, go on, pitch it to me.
Yeah, it is very sci-fi, but it's just to give an overlay of the story, it's Tom Cruise set in the sort of nearish future. Earth is battling this alien race, and basically insurmountable odds, and they're gonna lose. There's this one moment, this significant battle with the aliens, and they go to this point, and Tom Cruise's character dies, but he wakes back up, and we see him, classic kind of Groundhog Day setup, going through the same day again, but he keeps dying at this same point. And we realise he's somehow intrinsically linked with these creatures, these alien creatures who have the ability to control time to a degree, and so he now is stuck in this motion, and he's just stuck in this loop, and he's then him and Emily Blunt, who's like the badass hero,
the angel of Verdun.
Oh, that's it, yeah. And so they team up and try and keep getting a little bit further into the story to try and win the battle against these aliens. And I tell you what, usually I don't like films that do the Groundhog Day premise. I think it can get really boring, and you are watching the same sequence really over and over again. But this film, not at all.
Amazing.
It never got boring at once.
Not a wasted moment here, like all Fuzz. Yeah.
No, and like as we are learning what's happening with Tom Cruise's character, he gets more confident in the scenes, and he gets more blasé about how he dies, and there's some real good comedic moments, and especially like at the beginning when he's sort of trying to prove to people that he is, he knows the future basically, and he's like, you guys are the team's playing cards, and he's like, you've got an ace of spades in your hand or whatever, and he's guessing all these future things, and everyone thinks he's an absolute lunatic. It's just brilliant, and I thought, like we were saying about Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise, he's not the best when it comes to romantic subplots in his films.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't necessarily tend to believe the connection he has with another woman. I don't know
because
why.
He's not a human himself, so like how
it must be something to do with that. But then, but his relationship with Emily Blunt in this film is so good, and
it's very sweet. Yeah,
and I think that's also because she's brilliant. She's such a good actress.
You buy into this idea that he has seen her like so many times, like he has grown to know her more than she knows him, because every time he has to explain to her back like what's happening, because he's brought back to a moment before he knew her. So like it's this like level of like, I've known you for probably years, trying to get across this battle and progress.
There's a brilliant moment where those two, they've managed to escape the big main battle after many tries, and they get to this little farmhouse, and they're trying to get to this helicopter, but there's like one dormant alien that's kind of stopping them, and Emily Blunt's character's coming up with all these ways to get around it, and Tom Cruise is like, no,
this is not going to work.
Can't do that. Yeah. And it's revealed that actually they've been. If the viewer thinks this is the first time they've got this far, but
they've
Tom
done
Cruise
it so many times.
We've been doing this hundreds of times, and every way we do it, you die, and I don't want to go ahead with this if you die. And you just that moment sells you on their relationship so much. It's just fantastic film. This.
So, question for you: is it still called Edge of Tomorrow, or is it Die, Live, Repeat?
Live, Die, Repeat. I think it kind of has one of those like multiple title ones. I think when it first was doing the rounds and like first came out of the cinema, I remember it being promoted as Live, Die, Repeat. But now whenever I see it, I see it as Edge of Tomorrow.
Live, Die, Repeat was the tagline for the movie. It was Edge of Tomorrow, but people did not show up for this movie. The movie bombed horribly, unfortunately. It's a great film, but it did not do well. So in the marketing for the home video kind of release, like the DVDs and Blu-rays, because at the time we still had those, they tried to remarket it, to rebrand it, because they thought that the problem was the title. And I don't think that is. Like Edge of Tomorrow is a good title.
That's fine. So's Live, Die, Repeat. Well, probably not as good, but I don't know. Maybe just the time that it came out in, because this in a different year, maybe in a different time. I can't see how this wouldn't be a really successful film. It's where I remember watching it and thinking, "What God? How are people not talking about this movie more? Because it's so good. Very underrated action sci-fi."
I went to see it in theaters, and let me tell you, it was a fantastic experience. So, yeah, check it out if you haven't, and you probably haven't because not many people have seen this movie.
You crack on with your next one.
My next one is a weird one, like usual, but I wanted to include it because I think it's an interesting little movie. It's a 2015 science fiction action film called Hardcore Henry. It's written and directed by Ilya Naishuller. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Probably not. This is his feature directorial debut. It stars Charlotte Copley, Halle Bennett, and Tim Roth, among others.
Oh,
And
Sharlto Copley, the guy from District 9.
yes, that's him. Yeah. And the film is about a guy named Henry. Guess you didn't expect that. Who's resurrected at the beginning of the movie from death. And he has no memory of his previous life, but he's told that he's on a mission to save his wife from this warlord, this weird guy with long hair. It's very simple action premise. The story is basically non-existent. The idea is that it's filmed with GoPro cameras mounted on a specially made mask and stabilization system. They use like electronics and magnets, and like the whole movie is shot from the perspective of Henry. So you never see Henry's face. You only see like the whole movie. It progresses as like this long take, like fake long take of him like rampaging through Moscow. It's set in Moscow, and he's like trying to find this person and killing all these guards and getting into all sorts of situations. And Charlotte Copley kind of helps him out. And the concept for the movie came from a music video for the song "Bad Motherfucker" from the Biting Elbows, which I remember seeing the video clip for this. What was very viral at the time of release. It was directed by the same guy who was directed this film. So they kind of like first experimented with this GoPro first person setup in the Biting Elbows music video, and then they did the movie. I think there was another video clip like before that for another song that they did, but like yeah, so like this collaboration continued then in the movie. It's a very interesting movie from like a filmmaking perspective. They had a budget of $2 million, so not very expensive at all, given the premise, given the talent involved. And the movie is very impressive. It's a bit exhausting. I remember seeing in the theater, and at some point you kind of like beg for it to end because this first person thing kind of like it grows old. It's great for a short film or a video clip or like a long movie where you're only seeing things from this perspective, and it's a GoPro perspective, so it's like a very fisheye kind of like it's a little headache inducing after a while. The concept is cool, but a 90-minute long first person one take movie can feel a bit much, surprisingly.
Yeah. I felt like I've never seen this film. I'm very aware of it. I've seen lots of clips, and I felt like if I've seen the best action sequence, you've kind of seen the whole film.
Yeah,
that's really what it is. So I never personally went out and watched it. It was a cool, unique idea back when it was made, and it was interesting for that. But yeah, I totally agree. I think you're really stretching the premise when you're doing this for 90 minutes.
But I feel like it's interesting to kind of like include it in this list because of what we establish being like the way we judge the movies that we include. Like the idea of, okay, so there's this new technology, GoPro. I can mount a camera on someone's face and I can make an action sequence from this perspective. We've never done this before. Or if we've done it, was with different technology that wasn't as convincing. So the idea of making a whole movie, an action movie at that, using this technology, using GoPros to bring that perspective that we've never really used that way before. I think it's an interesting. It will be remembered as a movie that tried something that was never really done before to this extent at this scale. So it didn't succeed fully. It's not the most amazing movie, but it's really cool. And some stuff that they do is really impressive. Like there's an action sequence on a truck, that I think is like in all the trailers. Another like shootout in an abandoned building. It shows that it's like a low budget kind of B movie in certain moments, but that adds to the charm of the whole operation. I think it's a good idea, and it's well executed in parts. So yeah, if you're into that kind of stuff, this is not a glowing recommendation, but it's an interesting little gem. So check it out.
So I think you might have even referenced this earlier, but I've got Dread as
Nice.
my honourable mention. I had this and Starship Troopers,
Oh,
but I feel like Starship Troopers is too sci-fi heavy for it to maybe be considered within this category. And I just wanted to just mention it because I love Starship Troopers, so just put that
great
put that
movie.
out there. But yeah, I went for Dread. Well, so directed by Pete Travis, came out in 2012, and based off a comic book originally, and we had an older film back in the day that I've never seen with Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, you are
Judge
not
Dredd.
talking about that one then.
Funnily enough, no, I'm not. But quite a fairly well-known character, and I think a lot of people recognise the mask. It's quite iconic. And this was a very little movie at the time. I don't think it had a massive budget to work with. I suppose I'm looking here. Actually, it had $45 million, which is pretty.
Actually, that's more than I thought.
Yeah, same. That is just on Google, so maybe that's not accurate. But yeah, we have Carl Urban playing the titular Dredd, and no vanity here. He's wearing a mask which pretty much covers everything other than his mouth and chin for the whole.
He's
movie.
Great.
Yeah, and he does it well. He's still very emotive, and you completely get his character motivations.
His mouth acting is off the charts.
Yeah, the man's got a chin. But yeah, really good, and we got a good cast of other characters here. Lena Headey,
the villain
of Game of Thrones fame. It plays the villain. Her name's Ma. So a bit of the sort of general premise of this, Judge Dredd, it's set in a future world where crime is out of control, and a lot of the population of cities all live in mega cities, and they're just these massive tower blocks of where overpopulated, like slums, and Dredd is part of the judges who are sort of an act, and
judge, jury, and executioner of everything.
Yeah. And he has a new recruit, Judge Anderson, played by Olivia Thirlby, he's taken under his wing, and they're going out on what they think is a bit of a routine mission in one of the mega cities. And it turns out, we learn that this mega city is run by Mars Gang, who's Lena Headey's character, and we sort of start at the bottom, and we need to get to the top of this tower. Our main character's goal is really just to survive this situation for as long as they can. And yeah, it's epic. And like we were saying, how the action, I'm sure that before the film was made, the slow-mo action was a big part of the sell of this film. They're like, oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to have this drug that you take that slows time and also makes everything really nice looking, glittery. And so we get many sequences where somebody's taken this drug, and you just get this ultra violence in slow motion, and it's like really beautifully shot, and you were seeing it from the drug's perspective, and just it gives some really cool action sequences in this.
Yeah, we're gonna do the raids, but also there's gonna be slow-mo, gore, and like weird technology involved. So it's unique, and it's really well done.
Yeah, and so I mean, like I said, it says it's listed as directed by Pete Travis, but I think a lot of people spoke. The writer of this film is Alex Garland.
Yeah.
Wrote and produced it, and then a lot of people, there's been reports on set, people saying actually Alex Garland, this is his directorial debut. He really took over the reins and directed this movie, and yeah, I suppose it maybe shows, and because we've seen he's a Alex Garland is a fantastic visual director
Yeah.
that we've seen throughout his work go on, and I think the visuals are some of the best thing that happen in Dread. It's a 90-minute film, not loads of dialogue, but
Well,
it's just a
the main
visual
character is
spectacle.
not very talkative, is he?
No. A great visual spectacle, this film. Lots of good action. Highly recommend this one.
Yeah, great pick. I was undecided whether to put it on or not, and I'm glad I didn't because you did. So we have more movies to talk about. Yeah, check it out. My final honorable mention is a fairly recent movie, the 2018 cyberpunk action horror film Upgrade.
Oh yeah, with fake
Uh,
Tom Hardy in it.
yeah, Tom Hardy light. He was
Logan Marshall Green, is that his
yeah,
name?
let's call him by his name because he deserves it, because he was very good in this. Logan Marshall Green. He was also in Prometheus, where he also looked like discount Tom Hardy, unfortunately for him. Or maybe,
But no, he is good. I do like him. He's a good actor.
yeah. And the movie is written and directed by Lee Wanell, who, as you know, and our listeners will know, is one of the creators of the Saw franchise. Um, and the movie is set in the near future. I think it's like in 2050s. Technology controls nearly all aspects of life, and Logan Marshall Green's character is this guy named Gray, who's a technophobe. Bad time to be a technophobe. That guy, he hates technology. He's afraid of it. He doesn't want anything to do with it. And obviously, something bad happens to him, and he ends up paraplegic. So he has to implant this experimental computer chip in his body. And then he uses the augmented physical abilities that the chip grants to get revenge for some stuff that has happened. So yeah, amazing premise, great little movie, great little sci-fi modern classic. I'd say Blumhouse movie, one of those low budget, great profit kind of productions.
Yeah.
It was made for like $3 million and made back 17, so great success. And I think it paved the way for a bunch of other Lee Wanell projects, kind of like the Invisible Man. And then these years he's come out with another Blumhouse production. So yeah, great success for him. Great concept, great acting from the guy. He has this chip inside his back, basically his fucking spine, that talks to him, right, and can gain control of his body. I like pivotal moments. So the action scenes are very funny, with Gray basically doing these incredible stunts with his body, but like his face is like horrified and unsure, and it's actually quite
Yeah.
funny because it's eerily similar in concept to what happens in Venom, who stars actual Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
But it's an inferior movie by any possible metric. But like Tom Hardy in that movie, he gets the symbiote and then he starts like killing people, and like his body is moving in a way, but like his face is like, what am I doing? Like and it's the same idea with a very similar looking actor, and they came out probably the same year, so it was really strange to make this realization. So don't know if anyone else has noticed. I guess yeah, it's a pretty easy thing to notice, but it was funny anyway. And so yeah, it's again, a simple premise, low budget movie, but they had this idea of these action sequences done this way, and they created a story around those action sequences that would justify and allow for that to happen. And I think it works really well. The few shots that we get of this cyberpunk world look really cool, even though unfortunately due to the budget we don't see much of it, and a lot is
No,
implied.
but they do that quite well. Like you said, I remember thinking, oh wow, they're really selling me on this like near futuristic world, but not showing too much. But it was yeah, I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, it's very smart with its budget, which all Blumhouse movies are. So yeah, great little sci-fi gem. If you're interested in that sort of thing, I think you will have a good time. It's not too long. It's really funny. Yeah, great action sequences. It's a good movie, and interesting one to look at from an action perspective.
Yeah, I do struggle. I watched this when it came out, and I remember really enjoying it. But I am struggling to sort of remember what happens. But I feel like the guy who gives him the tech ends up sort of being the secret main villain, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Sort of tech
so
genius guy.
it's so predictable. You see it in the trailer, and you already know. Okay, he's giving you this experimental chip because he wants to do something bad to you, and he does. Yeah, and there's like but the story revolves around this revenge. And don't want to spoil too much about it. Like, you spoil this, but it's so obvious that something
Yeah, yeah,
bad is
yeah.
going on with this character. And if you don't have the context for the movie, it's not really a spoiler. But yeah, it's not a surprising story, but the journey is fun nonetheless. All right, let's move on. Best action movies of all time. These three movies that I picked are in the kind of like upper echelon of like great movies, like the greatest movies ever made, but specifically in action. They're probably, I think, we briefly mentioned some of our picks before we started recording, and I think we have some overlay here, which is fine. Like this kind of stuff might happen from time to time.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
like
So
when you look at these movies, like some of these are the best ones ever made, and there's there's
yeah,
there's
yeah.
nothing you can do about that.
And that's fine. We can always good to commend a great movie. So, and I suppose if they link up, we'll both just go into detail on them. But yeah, my number three is quite a recent one from 2015, directed by George Miller. We've got Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh, really? That's your third one. Well, that's number one for me. So
And
already
that's
kind
that's
of.
that's that's absolutely fair enough. It's not to put a dampener on how good this film is. You'll hear my other two, and you're like, okay, well, they're two of the greatest films ever made. So it's we're splitting hairs here
Yeah,
with
that's
this
fair.
top three. Because yeah, this is like a 9 out of 10, 9.5, potentially 10 out of 10 movie for me. Mad Max. I absolutely loved this the first time I watched it. Have watched it probably 3 or 4 times since then,
Yeah.
and have loved it every time.
Yeah, like when thinking of an action film, the idea of crafting a story, like a cinematic experience around one singular idea for a cool set piece or sequence, a chase, a car chase, is definitely one of those cool ideas that very few have succeeded in bringing to the screen to this level at least. And there's no car chase cooler than the entirety of Mad Max Fury Road. So
Well, the
uh
whole film is a car chase,
yeah,
pretty
exactly.
much, which
uh
is crazy as a kind of premise. And you don't. It's so easy to get wrapped up in it because there's so much great lore and world building and characters. You kind of do forget that pretty much the majority of the film is like one big long action sequence, but it just like glosses over you, and you just get lost in it
yeah,
completely.
but if you look at the story, it's actually a pretty good one. Should I go into it real quick?
Yeah, yeah. As this is your favorite, you can set us up.
All right, nice. So the story of this is, as we said, very simple. It's an elegant excuse for a car chase through the desert. Our boy Max Rokitansky, that is played here for the first and so far last time
By
by,
Logan Marshall Green.
yeah, exactly, by fake Logan Marshall Green, Tom Hardy, is captured by this cult of so-called war boys, and is taken to this fortress in the desert called the Citadel. And basically, there we discover that Max is a universal donor, which is something that will come into play later in the movie. Basically, is zero, like his blood goes well with all these sick little boys, like malnourished boys with post-atomic kind of like cancers growing under their skin and stuff like that. So he's forced to kind of like transfuse his blood to this character Nux, who's played by Nicholas Holt. Is one of these war boys in this cult of weird people that live in this citadel.
Excellent
Um,
performance.
yeah, he's
Nicholas
great.
Holt, kind of. I think on rewatching, he has become my favorite
Yeah,
character in the
he's the
film.
heart of the
Yeah,
film for sure. Meanwhile, everything happens with Max, the cult leader, Immortan Joe, iconic fucking villain,
yeah.
sends his lieutenant, Imperator Furiosa. Sorry, that's the name. Great Charlize Theron on a mission outside of the citadel in this armored truck called the War Rig. But plot twist: Joe realizes that Furiosa took his 5 wives and that they are fleeing somewhere in the war rig. So he leads this entire army in pursuit, calling on his allies to help. Max is brought along as like Nax's blood sack because he is so weak he can't survive without a constant influx of blood. And then we have a movie that literally never stops from beginning to end. This is just a fucking experience, an experience that I hope you had on the big screen, because there's no better way to
Oh yeah,
enjoy
yeah.
this insane film.
It's so bombastic, but in such a good way, and
Yeah,
so over the top, and so over stylized, and it all fits the world perfectly.
they literally bring, like, they are chasing this truck, and they bring along a guy that is literally just a guitarist on ropes with like
Yeah.
a bunch of like just playing music to pump them up, to hype them up as they chase down the storm basically. It's crazy, it's crazy. And I love this movie for so many reasons, but one of the reasons is just like a little bit of the behind the scenes, because this film is the definition of success through hardship. Because
Yeah.
Miller came up with the idea for Fury Road in 87, and it wasn't before 1998 that pre-production on the movie started. So like this is the most hellish of development hells already. But we know that the movie didn't come out in 1998 or 1999, so something else must have happened. Attempts to shoot the film in the 2000s were delayed numerous times due to the September 11 attacks, the Iraqi war, the controversy surrounding star Mel Gibson, which at the time was going through a lot of bad stuff. Miller was kind of like forced to recast Gibson's role, and he went through a bunch of different actors. So like that took time, and then he decided to pursue the film again in 2007 after making Happy Feet. By the way, same director, Happy Feet and Mad Max Fury Road. This will never not be funny to me. Um, and in 2009, Miller announced that the filming would begin a few years later. They were already kind of like producing the movie. Hardy was cast as Max in June 2010, and the production was planned to begin in November, and then delays again. The production actually began in 2012. The film wrapped in December of the same year, but then they shot some other stuff in 2013. So and then the movie came out in 2015. So a lot of post production, a lot of work to bring this together. And Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron spoke multiple times about how they hated each other on set, and how like they didn't believe in the movie, they didn't believe in Miller, they didn't think that this would turn out to be anything, that they were dying in the desert trying to make
Both
this
both of
movie.
them both of them felt that way, did they?
Yeah. Like for different reasons. Like Charlize Theron was angry at Tom Hardy because apparently he wasn't very professional on set, and Tom Hardy was like, "What am I even doing? This is a crazy man who wants to make a movie where someone is gonna die of dehydration sooner or later." So, yeah, it was a very harsh set, and this is where greatness is made and distilled, and this movie is the result of all of that. The energy that you feel on screen, the music, the editing, like everything is just, no pun intended, firing on all cylinders. Like this movie is incredible. and we've got themes of humanity, of survival, disability, and even, mind you, feminism, if you can believe such a thing. I bet Alpha Bros love this movie, even though it's a movie about a woman trying to save other women from men, evil men who want to do bad things to them, and become
Yeah, and they're like Eden that they're trying to take them to is
it's
like
a
an all-female
matriarchy. Yeah,
society. Yeah, it's a matriarchy. So there is a heavy on the themes of patriarchy and matriarchy, but it's not like you. I'm sure you were just about to say it's not in your face. It makes sense in this fantasy post-apocalyptic world, not
absolutely.
like not like in The Last of Us, where
Oh,
we have 17-year-old girls ruling the ruling the zombie wasteland.
yeah, I mean, like, I don't see anything wrong with that. Why can't a young woman rule the zombie wasteland, Tyler? Are you a fucking misogynist? I don't know. Like,
Apparently so. Apparently so.
but yeah, like, yeah, this movie has these themes, and it intertwines them with a very an excellently crafted story and incredibly well done action sequences. It's just incredible, man. And Furiosa as a character, she, like, people gave the movie grief because she kind of like takes center stage and upstages the character of
Yeah,
Max, who was the
I mean,
protagonist for the
I've never seen the older ones. I should. I feel like a couple of them are quite decent, and it's probably worth
I've
watching.
seen them. They're worth watching, but they're nothing like this one, man.
But like I'm sure Mel Gibson's version of the character spoke a lot more.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so
Because I
especially in the
mean Tom,
first one.
yeah, because whereas Tom Hardy's character's like for like an almost an hour he doesn't say anything and he just makes all these like grunting animalistic noises a lot, and like for such a long period of the film he's trying to get this mask,
Muzzle,
like this
yeah.
muzzle off of his face, and he's just it's like a dog just like the whole time just making all these weird noises. And yeah, Charlize Theron does take the lead more so in this film, and she is probably the lead character, but ain't nothing wrong with that. She's a great character in this, and she's the one. Tom Hardy is just fallen into this situation, and he's just trying to survive. Whereas she's the one with an actual motivation and a goal here. So it makes sense that she leads the story.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's she becomes the heart of the story, and the reason why the plot is put in motion is because of her decision to leave this citadel and try to find um, you know, happiness and solace elsewhere in this place that she remembers from her childhood. And actually, this brings me to a question: have you seen the prequel movie Furiosa that came out
Furiosa.
last year?
I haven't. I didn't hear great things. I will still watch it. And I saw the trailer, and the trailer just is it directed by George Miller as
Yeah, it's
well.
George Miller, and it's a
Really? Okay.
movie. It's a movie that he wanted to make right after Fury Road, but then,
It
like,
looks it looks very CGI fake, in comparison to this, which I've seen loads of behind the scenes shots where they're filming all the war rigs and stuff like that. Like the trailer for me didn't look very good, and so I didn't watch it. I didn't necessarily want to sully the memory of the film, and I wasn't that fussed about seeing a prequel to Furiosa's character, but it's something I probably will watch at some point.
I love the Furiosa.
Yeah,
Okay, so this movie was actually a passion project for Miller. He wanted to make it right away, but then, like everything, like it always happens with these movies, like production problems and budget problems, and then the time was gone because Mad Max was a great success critically. Everyone loved it, but it didn't really make that much money. Fury Road, I mean, and so there wasn't really like the in the market like the justification to invest millions and millions of dollars on this other project years later. Like, I think it
yeah.
came at
I
the
mean, for an action film to get the recognition at the Oscars and from the industry,
yeah.
I feel like when it came out, it had a lot of hype and a lot of
Oh, yeah,
lot
yeah,
of
yeah.
potential behind
Everyone
it.
who watched it loved it, but it wasn't
Yeah,
like mainstream in a way. Like, it wasn't a Marvel movie Like, I know that that's a
Yeah.
stupid
It didn't like
comparison, but
didn't break the billion. Yeah.
so yeah, so basically, like, I don't know, like, I feel like Miller, I think he invested part of his own money in order to make this, and it came out almost 10 years after Fury Road, which, when I realized how much time had passed from the release of Fury Road, I felt my body crumbling into dust, because it feels like yesterday that I was watching it in theaters. But Furiosa is actually really good, and I recommend it to you. It's very different from Fury Road, which is fine. It's a prequel. It's not like set in like 1 or 2 days like Fury Road. It spans decades. You see Furiosa as a character grow up and end up in
Yeah.
this society of the Citadel, and you flesh out all the other, like, societies that you only hear mentioned or briefly see, in with everything else. So, like, the characters that you see briefly in Fury Road that help Immortan Joe in the chase, from Bullet Farm and the other guy, like, those characters are
Oh yeah.
back, and you have a bunch of scenes with them, and they're really funny. And Chris Hemsworth is the villain in the film.
I've heard
uh,
he sort of steals the show a
and
bit.
he is so good, man. Like, I think I might he might be its best role, and his arc in the movie and how it ends. I felt it was brilliant, man. It's really well done. I mean, yes, the CGI is obvious in many scenes, but it was obvious and in Fury Road 2, and there were many scenes where there was a heavy use of CGI, and we didn't complain then. So some of this stuff can't be done. Like, they've done a lot of it practically, and you can feel when it is practical. But yes, there's a lot of CGI, but it doesn't detract from the powerful. Like, the story here is better, I think, because Fury Road is a very basic, powerful story.
Yeah.
But here they flesh out the world. Like, I think it does what a prequel should do. It fleshes out the world, it fleshes out the characters. You see more of Immortan Joe, you see more of these other side characters that you only caught glimpses of in the first movie. And yeah, it really works. It has a lot of very cool moments. So yeah, I would recommend it. I know this is not a review of Furiosa, but since we're talking about Mad Max Fury Road, I felt it was
Yeah.
appropriate to mention it.
It's something I definitely always knew. I will eventually get around to watching it for sure, but it's maybe, and like you said, maybe that 10 year gap between the films kind of killed that momentum slightly. But yeah, this Mad Max Fury Road will live on, I think, as one of the greatest action films ever made. Nice one. Do you want to go on to your number three then?
Well, my number three is a little movie. Probably never heard of it. It's not that well known. The 1988 absolute classic action thriller from Joel McTiernan, Die Hard.
You know what? Never seen it.
You've never seen it? Are you serious?
Never seen it. Honestly, I think I've seen a few of the Die Hard films. Never seen the first one.
Okay, that is a stain on your filmmaker, film lover resume, and you need to clean that up as soon as possible, because you cannot. Like, we watched Die Hard in class back in film school, in like screenwriting class. They made us watch it.
And some people say film degrees aren't hard work.
There you go. Okay, Die Hard. This film. Well, I wrote here this film needs no introduction, but apparently it does to you. So I guess I'll introduce it to you. Die Hard.
I know it's the world's best Christmas movie.
Exactly. So many people say that. I'm sick of that line, but actually, it's kind of true.
Yeah.
Director is Joe McTiernan. Great director. He also made Predator. A bunch of great movies. Starring the great Bruce Willis, probably his most iconic role ever. An amazing Alan Rickman, who people might not realize was Snape in the Harry Potter movies. Great villain, great villain. The film follows this New York police detective, John McClane, iconic name. who becomes entangled in this terrorist takeover of this Los Angeles skyscraper while he was visiting his wife, well, estranged wife, I should say, because they're not really on speaking terms, during a Christmas Eve party that is happening in this building. So amazing premise, premise that, not unlike Battle Royale, not unlike other movies that we've mentioned so far, has been copied 100 times over because it's so genius. All the Die Hard sequels have done this. The movie Air Force One is Die Hard on a plane. The Olympus Has Fallen and White House Down movies, it's Die Hard but in the White House. In the Then we have Speed and Speed 2. By the way, like the Olympus Has Fallen and White House Down, Die Hard clones that came out the same year, by the way. So like kind of
Yeah,
funny.
I do remember that.
Then we have the more recently we had that Carry On movie on Netflix with Taron Egerton, which I haven't seen, but apparently it's really fun. But it's basically Die Hard 2 because it's Die Hard in an airport. So yeah, iconic movie, iconic lines, hippie ki motherfucker, ho ho ho, I have a machine gun. What else can I say? It's so much fun. It's so well done. I watch it every year. It's just it never like it's one of those movies that will never really age that much because yes, like you can look at it and be like, okay, this is an 80s movies for sure, but like the pacing of it, I feel like, I don't know, like a person in the 80s watching this movie would have had a heart attack. Like what's going on? Like this movie has the pace of a modern thriller. It's like everything is happening so fast, and you like the way the movie is able to explain everything to you so seamlessly and efficiently. All the characters, all the little side, like Hans Gruber, Alan Rickman's character, the leader of this gang of terrorists, and the way he interacts with these smaller characters who maybe have like 2 or 3 lines of dialogue in the whole movie, and you still remember them. You still know who they are. You still know their role in the plot that they're doing, the scheme, and they're so iconic. Everyone is, the little limo driver who brings John McClane to the building in the beginning of the movie, and then gets like it remains like they shut everything down, so he's trapped inside uh, the the parking lot underneath the building. And he doesn't do anything for the whole movie. Every once in a while, they cut back to this guy in the limo doing nothing, and then at the end, he rams into this guy and he saves John McClane. Like, oh my god, that's why he's there. Like everyone has a role in the story. Everyone has a little arc. uh, the relationship with the police officer on the outside, and how it develops. Like they talk through walkie-talkie. Like he's the only person who believes in John McClane and like thinks actually something is happening in this building. So like he's the one that activates everyone else, the police that comes after, as the situation escalates. So yeah, it's like this incredible little movie, and yeah, if you've never seen it, it's the original one. Every other movie that came after, just like Battle Royale, it's just a pale imitation of this perfect little film.
I was just looking through all the Die Hard films to try and work out which ones I've seen, and I've seen 4 and 5.
Oh really?
Which
So the worst ones.
are they? Yeah, I don't know why I've jumped in at those points. Maybe they were just on TV and I watched them, but God, they're not good, and so maybe that is why I've been put off of going back and rewatching the first one ever again. But it's yeah, but definitely when I was doing some research onto other people's top picks of action movies, this was pretty much consistently always in people's top 10 or top 5. So yeah, it must really hold up. I kind of
Are you
always had
calling me a
this.
normie?
Yeah, you basic bitch. But I kind of just assumed, maybe because my knowledge is of 4 and 5, that Die Hard was very campy and cheesy, but not in like, but also had a weird meld of a serious thriller tone.
The first one is not as campy. Like they lean into the campiness a bit more as the series progresses.
Yeah.
The first one, yeah, it has moments of levity, and John McClane as a character is very charismatic and very funny. And he is very, like is a police officer. He at some point he kind of knows that he has the upper hand on these terrorists because he knows where they are, and they know who he is or where he is. So he's like this weird boogeyman that walks around this building trying to take them out one by one. So he's having fun with that. He has a bunch of one-liners that are really fun. But the movie has a great underlying tension. There's the people dying, like a lot of people dying. The John McClane's wife is in danger throughout the film, and at some point, Hans Gruber figures out that she is his wife, so he uses her to get to him. So there's this growing tension that is so well done.
Yeah.
It's not as comedic as it becomes later on, when it becomes basically a parody of itself, especially with the later
Yeah,
ones.
yeah. That's exactly what I remember. I remember 5 quite. I know 4 quite well. With it's got like Justin Long and
Is it the one
Kevin
with
Smith. Timothy Oliphant's the bad guy in it.
Okay, what's the one with fucking what's his face? The insufferable actor who plays Mr. Boomerang in the Suicide Squad.
Oh, Jai Courtney.
Yeah.
I think that's the next one where he
Yeah.
plays his son. Isn't
Yeah,
he? He's like
exactly.
his estranged son, and yeah, they just seemed like paint by numbers, campy 80s action movie with over the top action in it, no stakes whatsoever, and so that kind of sullied my sort of views of the Die Hard franchise. And I kind of mentioned it during Mission Impossible. I think films like this work better when they're taken a bit more seriously. You can have comedy and moments of levity and some campy like big action sequences, but at the end of the day, aren't if the stakes aren't there and we don't fear for any of these characters, you're losing the whole tension of the movie, and it kind of becomes pointless. And you're not leaning far enough into the comedy, then what is the point in it being an action thriller? Well, so I mean, yeah, you've definitely made me want to check out the first one now.
Yeah, man,
It's been long enough.
It's a classic. You should check it out. Just for your movie cred to remain intact. You should you should do it. You should watch it.
Well, yeah, my second choice, kind of similar. It's so heavy. A couple of other genres. It was a tough one for me to put in there, but I think going along with our definition, the reason why this one sets apart from the other films it's part of is because of how action heavy it is, and I've gone for James Cameron's Aliens.
Ooh, nice. All right, yeah.
And we have discussed this film in brief before on the channel when we did a bit of a deep dive into ranking the Alien franchise, and this for me is my number one of the Alien franchise, and it's not. I think I probably prefer, on first watch I probably preferred Alien 1, but the rewatchability of this one is a lot higher. It's a lot more fun. It's bombastic. There's a lot of things going on. Lots more characters to kind of latch onto, and it's a bit more over the top, but in a good way, and still settles into the tension when it needs to.
You're one of those guys, then. You're one of those Aliens guys.
You prefer the first one?
I know cinema when I see it, and so Alien
it's very
1.
close. It's very close.
Yeah, I know
it's
it's close for me too, but I prefer the vibe of Alien 1. Like, Aliens is great, and as you said, definitely more rewatchable. But and if we had to discuss action, which we are, definitely the first one would not make the cut, but the second one has a good shot.
And it's crazy. I remember reading somebody's like Reddit post a while ago that had a lot of likes onto it, and it was like a guy, who knows whether it's legit or whatever, but it was a guy saying he just introduced his son, who was like 14 or whatever, to Aliens, and he was having a sleepover with all his mates, and they all watched Aliens, and he watched his kid and all these other kids watching it, and he couldn't believe how into it they were, and how affecting it still was today. And this is 1986, this film. not many action films, especially one with as many sets and props and, you know, a futuristic sort of world here that we're building, can hold up still today. But you watch like the Blu-ray, like 4K release of this film, and it is beautiful. Like
Yeah.
it looks better than most films shot today. It's still incredible.
Well, yeah.
You know, James Cameron at his absolute best.
Yeah, the effects hold up almost perfectly. Like there's so many, and like so many things are done practically, like with rare projections and like
Yeah,
literally like screens. Like when they have that ship kind of like crashing down and like Bill Paxton is running away, like they literally have the projection of the model exploding behind him in real, like they're like literally like in frame doing that. Like it
yeah.
just holds up so well. It looks really close to real, which, you know, some of the special effects that we see today do not look as close to real as they should. So yeah, it's amazing.
It was, you know, piggybacking off the success of the first film and basically giving us, you know, a similar plot, but it's completely different genre this time. It's reinvented for an action sci-fi movie, and I feel like it's pure tension for the first sort of hour of this movie, and then I think bang on that hour mark, our crew of Marines get into the ship, and that's when we first encounter the alien, the xenomorphs, and we get a big shootout with them, and then pretty much from there on out it is action packed till the very end. But this yeah, it's non-stop in a similar way that Mad Max is once it gets going. And we get, you know, the first sort of act of the film is setting up the world and the lore and introducing us to the characters, and then it's just bang 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 non-stop.
I prefer my Alien when it's more horror oriented, when it's more tension oriented, but I do love the bursts of action that we get. And it's interesting to see because Alien, you know, like it's a franchise that has been around for a very long time. We have the first movie that's really, you know, like basically a haunted house in space, and the second movie that is just like a basically almost like a war movie, like an invasion movie, with aliens, I should say, you know, like as the title says. And then every other movie after that has been trying to do a combination of these two flavors of Alien. Can't go back to pure horror after the franchise has done action this way, so you want to do both. And, you know, like Romulus, we've talked extensively about it, you know, link to that review somewhere here on screen. But uh yeah, it failed mostly because it tried to be a highlight reel of what we liked about those first two movies, you know, and it shined brightly, well, brighter, when it tried to do unique and new stuff. So yeah, like Aliens really kind of like set the tone for the franchise going forward, and also set the tone for what people tend to expect from a sequel, because there's
Yeah,
no,
very true, very
yeah,
true. It's sort of set that, oh right, we just need to go bigger with this next one.
yeah, like every other movie that tried to do a sequel after that was like, okay, how are we gonna live up to the level of hype that Aliens brought to the table? Like people were losing their minds. I mean, I wasn't there. I don't think I was born when Aliens came out, but um yeah, I know that like the reaction to that was very strong because people were not expecting such a shift in genre, even though, you know, James Cameron was famously, you know, like he did something similar for Terminator, I guess. Like the first Terminator was still action, but it was more a horror movie than anything else. And then
Yeah, it's very comparable.
and then
With
T2 is just this explosion of just like craziness for 2 hours, and you're like, oh my god. So yeah, it's very interesting. Like this era of movies really, I think it's still so influential today. We're still trying to capture the magic of those ones. Like every new movie.
they were blockbuster films, but all very simple premises. genre heavy films that, like you said, became so influential still over many years, and there's still today we haven't necessarily topped some of these films like Terminator 2 or Alien and Aliens. People are still referencing those in their films, and yeah, they are just like the benchmark of their genres still, which is kind of crazy.
Well, my number two, since I've already
is my number one, is it?
Yeah, because we've already discussed my number one, so my number two becomes my number one, and I know from memory that we both have this movie in our list. So I'm guessing we are already on position number one.
If you're, a bit of a cinephile and your action movies, I'm sure you're probably thinking, okay, that's weird they haven't mentioned this film, because this is this is an iconic action film. Like we're saying, it changed the scope of action movies forever afterwards, and you still see influences from it today. In terms of not just what it did with its action, but in terms of what it was doing with its themes and the story, and it was just so ahead of its time. So we have the Wachowskis' 1999 classic, The Matrix. Another film that if you look at anybody's lists, this will probably appear in their top 5, top 10. And that's not just because everybody's copying each other, I assume. I just think this is unreal. It's fantastic.
I just copied your list. I was like, oh, The Matrix. I guess, that's a good cinephile pick. So I'll put it in. Oh, man.
I'm surprised Citizen Kane wasn't just your first one.
I was like,
oh, fuck it. People like that movie, right?
I mean, when he trashes the room and breaks everything, I think that's a great action sequence, man.
We have, I'll be shocked if you haven't seen the film, but a little just sort of.
Well, the story, premise. You all know it. You all know the story.
Yeah, everyone knows the story. We have our main character, Neo, a computer programmer, hacker, who's sort of unsettled in his sort of mediocre average life that he's living, and so he feels like he's destined for something more, like classic protagonist setup here. And then we get the reveal that basically, he's the reality he lives in is not reality, and that he's,
what?
Where all humans are living in a simulation, and that they're actually living hundreds of, or however many years in the future it is. They're all plugged into batteries, and they're just being used by machines as a power source, basically. And I can't remember how old. I would have seen this film very early on, but I can't remember the first time I've watched it, because I've rewatched it so many times over the years.
Oh man!
But that reveal is like one of the best cinematic twists or reveals in any movie I've ever seen. It's something like we said with Battle Royale has been aped off so many times that if another movie did it now, it's still a twist like that is shocking, but you'll be like, oh yeah, that it's like the Matrix twist. The twist when they do it in the Matrix is like I said, one of the most shocking turns in a film.
Yeah, if you don't know anything about this movie, it's crazy when he wakes up in that pod. It's haunting. Like you will never sleep the same.
And just there's so much iconic imagery throughout the movie. Like there's just 10 shots which are just like etched in cinematic history. Easily that, or probably more.
Yeah.
Layered throughout this film, but it's I think there was some talks that it's somewhat based off an old anime or manga. Like
for sure,
there's definitely there's some influences taken from other older properties here, but it's
people at the time were saying that they were ripping off Dark City that came out a year prior, because it had like a similar kind of.
Have you seen Dark City?
Yeah, I've seen it. It's a good movie, but like doesn't have. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the Matrix.
Nothing like the Matrix.
So yeah,
and pales in comparison as well.
I mean, they definitely brought that anime aesthetic and like Eastern sensibility to the, like mainstream action blockbuster in America. So like there's that you can say, like they took inspiration from a bunch of stuff that they were passionate about.
Like old school martial arts film style
Absolutely.
as well,
Especially
especially with the fight sequences.
yeah, especially with the second and third one, they really lean into that like Eastern kind of like kung fu like stuff. So yeah, it's this movie, man.
It's so many genres and different types of films mashed together into one, which you see, it's like very postmodern. You see a lot of that nowadays. But back in 1999, it was quite original for its time.
I mean,
Um,
we've
and you
never
have,
seen anything like this at the time. It was, and the cultural impact and how everyone was talking about it. I was in middle school, like everyone was talking about it, like it was insane, like the level of, I don't think there's has been a movie this like all encompassing, all like everyone was like, oh my god, the Matrix, Jesus Christ, like uh it was just insane. Like we will never see anything like this because the industry has changed so much, the way we watch movies has changed so much. Even something like Barbie and Oppenheimer, who that have been like this massive event movies last year, 2 years ago, um they pale in comparison to the level of like omnipresence of the Matrix
oh
as
yeah, they were big. They were big for 6 months,
yeah.
and then nobody's really talking about it. And maybe that is a part of the times we live in now.
Yeah,
But
totally.
Matrix affected fashion, it affected music, it affected other movies, it affected all parts of popular culture.
It was
And
like the
even
one of the first like
even terminology we get, still people say today, oh, you red pilling or things like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
It's the terminology of the film still permeates culture today.
Well, and this movie is the reason why we're nice to ChatGPT, man. I don't want to be harvested like crop, dude. Like I don't want to do that. So like I will always.
You think that's gonna stop you from being used as a human flesh battery?
I mean, I don't know, but I will say my please and my thank yous, and make sure that like I haven't upset the digital overlord.
You're just like
Um,
fucking Cypher in this movie.
I mean,
That's your character.
I would be a Joe Pantoliano and just go into the Matrix and eat a steak.
Sell out everybody for some simulated pussy and steak.
I mean, if the alternative is to live with Lawrence Fishburne in a deserted cave doing raves all the time with no drugs, like
Having
what's
to
the
just
point?
listen about how great Neo is all the time. He's the fucking new guy on the ship. Like, let's give Cypher some fucking a little bit of attention once Trinity. That's you're the reason you almost fucked up the movie.
Yeah, fucking hell, man. But jokes aside, whenever a production literally comes up with new technology just to shoot action or anything really, I think that's what you're looking for when determining what a seminal action flick is. And here we have bullet time, you know the idea of these hundreds of pictures shot in quick succession thanks to this rig of cameras placed around the actor to give the impression of a super slow motion shot, while the camera is actually moving super fast. It's not a camera moving, but you get my meaning. Like it's the effect is that of a camera moving really fast around a character moving really slowly. So it's a killer combo, and they came up with it for this movie. So like, okay, they didn't invent it. Don't come at us in the comments. Actually come at us in the comments. We need the engagement. But the technique of using a group of still cameras to kind of like freeze motion is older than cinema itself. We have the famous video, and I'm using air quotes here, of the horse in motion. It's a similar concept to this. They put like 10 cameras on a straight line. They made a horse run through the line, and then they took pictures. But we can safely say the Matrix was the first to use this concept in this way, and definitely the one who that popularized the idea. And the term bullet time was literally used to describe the action in this specific movie. It's so beautiful that a film literally launched our society into this new millennium of the 2000s, and is the one to it's the one to revolutionize. It's the one to revolutionize a technique that exists since the 1800s. It's kind of poetic, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, what can we say that hasn't already been said about The Matrix? It's a masterpiece. It's a classic. Has stood the test of time.
The elements of the film that especially on rewatching over the years and years, the elements of the film I enjoy more than the action. I love the philosophical aspects of it, and the is this reality, is this not reality, living in a simulation and being able to sort of download skills and abilities like into yourself, and then you can become a master of that. I think I love those aspects more than the action necessarily. Not that the action's bad or anything, because it's fucking amazing, but the world created by the Matrix is so immersive for me, and the characters as well. I think that like Morpheus might be one of my all-time favorite movie characters ever, and I'll always, whenever I see Lawrence Fishburne in a film, and I love Lawrence Fishburne, I'll be like, oh great, Morpheus is in this. That's awesome. I love seeing Morpheus.
Yeah.
He's got some epic monologues in this film. Just some of the greatest lines of dialogue here.
And Hugo Weaving has one of the best monologues too.
Oh man,
towards the
yeah,
end,
what a villain! What an iconic, great villain as well.
we managed to ruin the bit with the following movies, but it's still iconic here. But yeah, I agree with you that the movie, like the reason why it stood the test of times is not just because of the great action and the great concept, but the way it kind of like lends itself to this vast array of interpretations and meanings dissected throughout the years, the cinematography, and how it highlights whereas we are in the Matrix or the real world, the effects that still look convincing for the most part to this very day.
Yeah, for sure.
And
And this is just in the first film actually, because the effects, probably because they're trying to get bigger and bigger as the films go on. The effects get more noticeable later
and
on.
they
But
rush
the first one,
the
everything.
production. Yeah,
Okay.
they rushed the
That
production
makes
of
sense.
the second and third one. The second and third one came out in the same year. They were doing this very weird thing where they they went on pre-production. They made the two movies like basically at the same time, and then yeah, like they released it like 6 months apart, and it was such a weird project. The whole thing. Uh,
That's a shame, because
mm.
I bet if you gave the Wachowskis more time back then to work on 2 and 3, they would have been a lot better. And I actually still really enjoy 2. 3's the one I've seen the least, and I still again really enjoy some elements of 3 too, because I think the
I
world
like
is
them
really
all.
interesting.
To be
Yeah,
honest,
yeah. I think they're all good films.
I feel like at the time we were really harsh on them because they were so different from the first one, and some of the ideas that they decided to explore and focus on were not really the things that most people were really tuning in for the first one was a pristine hero's journey, right? It was the hype of that ending, and that fight with Agent Smith. It's just exceptional. It's iconic. It's
Yeah.
been parodied to death, and we still love it anyway. They did it in Shrek. They did it in the second fucking Space Jam movie recently. For some reason, the old lady is doing the Trinity kick at some point. So
How crazy is that? People in, I mean, not that that's a fucking good movie, but people will still reference that moment.
yeah.
26 years later.
It's crazy, and yeah, the success of the film led to these two sequels that were not as revered, but I think now that we established that that's the lore, that's what Zion is, because in the first movie you only had an idea what Zion might be. Oh, and then you see it in the second movie, and it's just like a bunch of hippies
bunch of hippies,
just
bunch of hippies underground,
just dancing and raving and like sweating. Or
you're like this, and well, maybe the machines won for a reason.
And so
if you guys weren't just fucking partying all the time.
But once you understand, like that's kind of the point that they are trying to get across. That this, humanity is imperfect and strange, and they expanded the lore through these comic books and video games and the Animatrix, and
the Animatrix is probably the best sequel. Or it's a series of short stories, so it's hard to sort of summarize them all.
Yeah, it's the first anthology movie.
Shorts. Yeah, there's a couple of shorts in that which are like, oh, if you had fleshed these out into Matrix sequels, then my god, this could have been a franchise that saw the kind of longevity and success of Alien. We would still be maybe seeing more and more Matrix films today if they had managed to capitalize a bit better on that success.
Yeah, well, not if the Wachowskis have something to do to that, because they did Matrix Resurrection so that they would never have the chance to continue with this franchise.
Then that genuinely might have been on purpose.
Well, actually, no. There's proof that that's the case. Resurrection, Warner Brothers approached the Wachowskis to direct the movie. I think Lily wasn't interested. I think she was doing something else, or she didn't want to go back to that word. But Lana Wachowskis decided to helm the project with the express intent of making it impossible for Warner Brothers to proceed with the franchise, to make it just another endless like money machine of spin-offs and TV shows and movies. Like, she wanted to make a movie that would kind of like kill the vibe and the hype for it, and like, let me tell you, it did. The movie, I think, is more interesting than people give it credit for. It's a bad movie. Don't get me wrong, it's a bad movie.
I hate it.
I hate so many things about it, but it's still interesting. Like, I feel like there's stuff there that you can look at and be like, oh, I wonder what they were trying to do with this. And most of it is bad. Like it's interesting in a way, not
it's
because
interesting in the way that when you look at like a dead body hanging out of a car crash on the side of the road, and you slow down your car for a little bit to check what's going on, in that way.
Yeah, it's just mind-boggling, like the decisions that they made, what to focus on. Like,
that kind of makes sense now that you say that. And I remember so much of Matrix 4 because it was so bad. But I remember there is a scene when they approach Neo, I think, and they're like talking about the game version of the Matrix.
Oh yeah, that was such a nonsensical thing.
That was so dumb. And I think they literally say, because it's Warner Brothers. Like, Warner Brothers is going to do this with or without you.
Yeah. So, like, the head of the company that then is revealed to be an Agent Smith in disguise or something like that.
Yeah.
He says, Warner Bros. Is going to do this with or without you, so get on with it. We're going to do the reboot of the Matrix. Literally, meta-narrative injected into this movie. Because the Matrix has always been very meta, like in so many of the elements that they decided to implement. But the difference is the meta was like there, but it was there for people who wanted to kind of like poke at the movie and analyze the movie and be like, oh, this also means this. Oh, this character is a metaphor for transgenderism. Oh, this other character means this. And so all these meta aspects of like who people choose to be in the real world and who they are in the Matrix world, everything was there for a reason. But the meta narrative in the fourth one is on the surface, is what the movie is. And so it does.
And it's self-referential.
It doesn't work.
It's meta, yeah.
But I feel like, I don't know her personally, so I can't express myself on that. But I am sure looking at the movie, having watched many reviews about it, because at the time I was just like confused about the whole project. I feel like the idea was, let's make this movie this way so that they can't possibly go on with this franchise. They can't, and I'm sure they'll find a way to reboot it again. But yeah,
the thing is, I think it's a world with a lot of potential. I don't think it's like a tired franchise.
Oh, not at all, not at all.
No, and I think there's so much you can do with, because the world building's great, and you've set up an incredible world where you can do lots of things, and you don't even have to necessarily. You can just have your story set within the simulation and not deal with the machine war stuff, and just have that as background, and still do so many cool things with the world of the Matrix. It's it's one of those franchises I wouldn't mind seeing redone in a way, or repurposed with some new characters or something. But it's I feel like there's a lot of potential here.
Totally. Yeah, but like because the franchise is so tied to the Wachowskis as, the directors, like it's kind of like, I don't want to make a weird comparison, but I'm gonna do it anyway. It's kind of like Lucas, like George Lucas. When Star Wars is not made by Lucas, even if Lucas made some of the best Star Wars and some of the worst Star Wars with the prequels, like when it's not Lucas himself, is it really Star Wars or is it something else? And I've enjoyed some of the Disney Star Wars stuff, like we've mentioned Andor recently, but like it's interesting to think, oh, when it's not the original author that is doing like the movie or the franchise, like how much can you value that as being part of that same story?
Yeah. And obviously later on, we didn't mention, but the Wachowskis transition genders, later after the film series came out, and so this was something that was clearly like a very personal story to them, and thematically like resonated with them very well, which is clearly why they were such a great fit to direct this movie. And
absolutely, yeah. Once you give this concept to just a whatever like Los Angeles screenwriter like that's done and nothing in his life,
oh, don't do that.
Like the franchise becomes stale immediately. Like you need to give it to and I'm using the word with the utmost like love and empathy, weirdos. You need to give it to weirdos. You need to give it to people who want to make strange stuff, because that's what makes it unique and interesting, and I think the machine that Hollywood has become in the past few years can't allow for a franchise like the Matrix to really bring the energy back. Like it's
it was just very edgy.
Yeah,
very edgy, and it pushed the boat with what it was doing for its time, for sure. But yeah, so if you're listening out there, Hollywood executives, let's drag up Matrix. Let's get it going again. Let's who do they? Let's get Millie Bobby Brown as Neo. We could have Bella Ramsey as Morpheus.
Yeah, The Rock as Trinity, of course.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, we need to subvert those expectations, man. And yeah, well, actually, no, you can't recast a black character like Morpheus with like that would be bad, man. Like they don't
if it's a non-binary female, I think you might get away with it in
okay.
Hollywood.
That's fair.
It's a very specific set of rules they have here, Tommy, when it comes to changing cast members.
It is a weird. It's weird how it works. I haven't managed to figure it out yet.
I think all of those films I've mentioned are potentially sort of 10 out of 10 categories for me. They're not just my top 3 action films, they're in my top sort of 20 probably films of all time, I think, these 3, and I'm sure it's probably similar for you too.
This was great list actually. I think we smashed it.
If you haven't seen any of these films, definitely check them out. They're well worth your time.
And if you disagree with our list, please write your own list down in the comments below. We would love to hear it.
And yeah, stay tuned guys, and thanks for watching.
Welcome to the cult.